It's Monday, October 27th, 2025, and here's the latest happenings inside the federal machine. The FBI announced an arrest of an individual responsible for a murder-for-hire plot against Attorney General Pamela Bondi, where he offered a $45,000 bounty. Also, Graham Platner, the Democrat with the Nazi tattoo running for U.S. Senate in Maine, lost his campaign manager, who resigned today after being hired just last week. The talk of the swamp town today is the SNAP benefits crisis, that 42 million Americans may lose their government food benefits on November 1st if the government isn't reopened. Politicians throughout the swamp, they've been talking about all sorts of different aspects of the government shutdown all day long. It's about all you hear the government talking about these days, and we'll go through the latest. Also, Senator Dick Durbin with the Democrats and Republican Senator John Thune each gave their own speech on the Senate floor today, and we'll take a look at that. Also, President Trump left Malaysia today after securing a peace deal between Thailand and Cambodia, marking the 10th peace deal President Trump has secured since his presidency. The president touched down in Japan, where he met with Emperor Haruhito. And there's a lot more happening today, so we're just gonna dive right in all the way back up here to the top. And if you enjoyed the video, please give the video a like and also consider subscribing to the channel if you have a quick second to do so. And if you leave a comment, I may just read it on the next episode if you decide to drop one. Also, every article that you'll see in the video will be linked in the description below. And this is from Benny Johnson. Breaking: FBI makes an arrest in a murder-for-hire plot against Attorney General Pam Bondi after an anarchist put a $45,000 bounty on her. This comes from Fox News.
Breaking news, top of the new hour here, and another threat of political violence in America. The FBI making an arrest in a chilling murder-for-hire plot targeting Attorney General Pam Bondi. We are learning brand new details at this hour. Welcome back as America Reports heads into hour two. I'm Sandra Smith in New York.
Scary stuff, Sandra. I'm John Roberts in Washington. The 29-year-old Minnesota man is accused of putting out a $45,000 hit on the Attorney General. It all started on TikTok when a post with the bounty started going viral.
Of course it was on TikTok. What a retard.
Federal investigation. And the suspect's rap sheet is long.
People will say fucking anything on TikTok. It's hilarious.
Anarchist symbolism and anti-government literature.
Our justice correspondent David Spunt live here in Washington. What else are we learning, David, about the suspect?
Well, John, he is charged with threatening Attorney General Bondi in a TikTok post. According to authorities in this affidavit that we just saw a couple of hours ago, unsealed recently, he allegedly offered a $45,000 bounty. In the post, there's a photo, and this was on TikTok, a photo of the Attorney General with a sniper red dot, and it reads, "Wanted Pam Bondi, reward $45,000, dead or alive, preferably."
All right, show us the image.
That's a
What's
quote.
wrong? What's wrong with showing us?
He is in custody. Additionally, his TikTok page had anarchist symbols, according to the affidavit filed. The affidavit.
Oh yeah, but he's totally not a leftist,
the
though.
The suspect user's TikTok page had a link to an anarchist FAQ book pinned
he's
to
totally
his
not
page.
with Antifa.
According to open source
Antifa
research,
sympathizer.
as well as based on your Affiance training and experience,
Antifa
is a
adjacent
philosophy that and movement that seeks to abolish all institutions that perpetuate authority, coercion, or hierarchy, primarily targeting the state and capitalism. Now, FBI agents...
That kind of sounds similar to Antifa.
Detroit, Michigan received a tip from someone who was on TikTok, noticed the post in their feed, then reported this post. The FBI worked with Google, Comcast, and TikTok to find this guy. Google helped with IP logins, IP locations. They also were able to find his email. Now, according to the affidavit, he has a multi-state criminal history, as you mentioned, including a 2022 felony stalking and domestic assault misdemeanor
Of course
charge.
he does.
We reached out to the Justice Department. So far, we're
Sounds
being
like
told
somebody's a little
no
emotional. All right, so that happened today. Absolutely crazy. Of course, it was on TikTok. Kind of surprised they didn't show us at least an image or something. I mean, I don't know what would have been so wrong with at least showing the image. I would go on TikTok and try to find it, but I'm just going to go on take a wild hunch and say that it's probably been taken down. So, all right. Anyway, so I'll just move on to the next thing. Senate Republicans' worst week of this guy's career. Graham Platner's campaign manager, Kevin Brown, is stepping down from his role. He was hired late last week, and the source is from Axios, and we've got the article here. And I'll go ahead and dig into this a little bit. Well, as much as it'll let me. Damn it, Axios. Freaking. All right, hold on. Subscribe. subscribe. I noticed the other day, not on Axios, it was New York Times, maybe, one of the newspaper sites that I visited. It allows me to read the articles if I create an account, but most of these, they make you actually subscribe. But anyway, I'll look into that when I'm not doing the show. But so Maine Senate Democrat Graham Platner's campaign manager is stepping down from his position after only days on the job, according to two people familiar with his plans. Why it matters, it's the latest in a series of personnel shakeups for Platner's campaign, which was endorsed by progressive Senator Bernie Sanders, but has been thrown into turmoil because Platner made controversial social media posts in the past and had a tattoo that looked like a Nazi symbol, and it just trails off from there. But I do have this. If you haven't heard, he did have a Nazi symbol on his chest, which he just recently got covered up, which is kind of funny. So I posted this about an hour ago. Maine Democrat Senate candidate Graham Platner claims he didn't know he had a Nazi tattoo on his chest, which he got back in 2007. Do you know when he got it covered up? Less than a week ago on the 22nd. He knew about it. He just underestimated the internet, as older Democrats often do. So for this first image, I pulled this from Google AI. I thought it would be somewhat appropriate to use Google AI after doing the video last night on my channel, comparing Google AI with Grok AI to see which one would give me a straight answer as far as who really shut down the government. Grok just came right out with it. Google was making me jump through all kinds of hoops and convolution out the yin-yang. So anyway, this was on Google AI, and it says in October of 2025, Maine Senate candidate Graham Platner publicly acknowledged that he had a tattoo resembling a Nazi symbol, which he subsequently had covered up. The tattoo, a skull and crossbones image, is known as the Totenkopf, or Death's Head, and was used by Nazi SS units. The key details of the incident, the tattoo's history. Platner said he got the tattoo in 2007 with fellow Marines while stationed in Croatia. He claims he didn't know about the symbol's Nazi association at the time, but chose it from a wall of decisions, like in a tattoo shop. They got all the images on the wall, and that's his claim, was that he picked it from a bunch of images on the wall. So this image says that Graham Platner had a tattoo resembling a Nazi symbol covered up on October 22nd, 2025. Which was, 5 days ago. It was literally just 5 days ago. So he's had this tattoo for, 18 years. And he just decided, not even a week ago, to just suddenly cover it up. Anyway, he revealed the new tattoo in an Instagram video posted on that date. The action was taken after controversy arose over the original skull and crossbones image. So there you have it. Yeah, he's taking a lot of flack for it. But some of the pundits over on CNN, they claim that he's up 30% in the primary. So I'm assuming that's 30% over whoever's running against him on the Democrat side. We'll see what ends up happening. But Bernie Sanders, he says he still stands by his endorsement, regardless of this Nazi tattoo that he had, which I found to be completely hilarious. So, that it's I don't know how many Democrats to date have Nazi tattoos, but we know of at least one who's an actual Democrat. And I don't know. Leave me a comment if you know of any Republicans who have ever had a Nazi tattoo or any kind of Nazi symbolism on them. And yeah, I would really like to know that, because I'll definitely bring that up on tomorrow's show if anybody comes up with one. But as far as I know, there aren't any. But there's certainly at least one Democrat. And if you know of any other Democrats who have any Nazi symbolism on them, definitely let me know, because I'd like to put that on the show too. That'd be very interesting to check out. All right, so anyway, let me see if there's anything else on here. Kevin Brown, a longtime friend of Platner's who started as campaign manager last week, is leaving his role, the sources said. That's on Politics and Poll Tracker. Graham Platner's campaign manager, Kevin Brown, stepping down. All right, so is there any more info beyond that? Graham, so here's a quote from him. Quote, "Graham is a dear friend," Brown said. "I started this campaign Tuesday, but found out Friday. We have a baby on the way." Oh, that's convenient. So what? You have a baby on the way. What? You're physically incapable of working? I mean, you're not having a baby, correct? It would be his wife. I'm assuming that his friend is a male. All right, Graham deserves someone who is 100% in on his race, and we want to lean into this new experience as a family, so it was best we step back sooner than later so Graham can get the manager he deserves. All right, whatever. All right, that's a lame excuse. That's a really lame excuse. All right, so that happened. Nazi tattoos from the Democrats. I don't think anybody, or Probably at least some people listening are probably not all that surprised. All right. Heading to the White House, peace and prosperity fact sheet. President Donald J. Trump secures peace and prosperity in Malaysia. And let's see. So as far as what's highlighted, it says Kuala Lumpur Peace Accords is a historic peace declaration ending border tensions between Thailand and Cambodia. Let me see if they have an article. I do have an article. Yeah, here it is. Okay. Just making sure it was in this post and not the next one. All right. So let me pull back on this a little bit because I got this stupid... I really wish they'd get rid of this social media tab on the side because, yeah, it covers it up. That's frustrating. Delivering peace and prosperity in one historic day. Today in Kuala Lumpur, President Donald J. Trump brokered the Kuala Lumpur Peace Accords between Thailand and Cambodia, secured reciprocal trade deals with Malaysia and Cambodia, issued joint trade statements with Thailand and Vietnam, also elevated relations with Malaysia, and deepened U.S.-Cambodia cooperation on defense and transnational crime. President Trump also participated in the 13th annual ASEAN Summit meeting, achieving historic peace between Thailand and Cambodia. President Trump and Malaysia's Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim hosted the Prime Ministers of Thailand and Cambodia to sign the Kuala Lumpur Peace Accords, a historic peace declaration ending border tensions between Thailand and Cambodia. I read it in passing. Apparently what started this whole conflict, I guess there's some religious temple that sits right on the border between the two countries, and one wanted to claim it, the other one wanted to, and they started fighting over it, and I guess the fighting never stopped until Trump came along. So through decisive U.S. diplomacy, Thailand and Cambodia reached a pivotal agreement to establish border observer teams, a critical step in solidifying long-term peace and fostering mutual trust between the two countries. At the request of President Trump and pursuant to the commitments in the Kuala Lumpur Peace Accords, Thailand will release 18 Cambodian soldiers that have been detained since July. This is a landmark achievement for international diplomacy that only President Trump could accomplish. Securing even more trade deals, President Trump signed agreements on reciprocal trade with Malaysia and Cambodia, and the United States announced frameworks for trade negotiations with Thailand and Vietnam. The United States and Malaysia agreed to a historic trade deal that will open up Malaysia's market for U.S. exports. Malaysia will eliminate or reduce tariffs on nearly all U.S. exports and allow non-discriminatory or preferential market access for U.S. agriculture and industrial goods. Malaysia will address a range of non-tariff barriers to ensure that U.S. exporters can access its market. For example, Malaysia will end its discriminatory practices for U.S. motor vehicles, meaning that U.S. vehicles can compete on a level playing field in Malaysia's market. Malaysia will also recognize U.S. regulatory oversight, ensuring that U.S. agricultural products can be exported to Malaysia without burdensome and duplicative regulatory requirements. U.S. and Cambodia agreed to a trade deal that will provide U.S. exporters with unprecedented access to Cambodia's market. Cambodia has agreed to eliminate all tariffs on U.S. goods, including food and agricultural products and industrial goods, meaning that U.S. exports to Cambodia will not face a duty. Cambodia has committed to treat U.S. exports fairly, including recognizing U.S. regulatory oversight to ensure that U.S. goods do not need to undergo burdensome additional testing requirements. U.S. exports to Cambodia will no longer face competitive disadvantages via other trading partners. I don't even know how to say that. Vis-a-vis? All right. Anyway, I'm an American. I can't pronounce that shit. All right, United States and Thailand agreed to a framework for an agreement on reciprocal trade, which will address tariff and non-tariff barriers for agricultural products and industrial goods. Under that framework, Thailand would eliminate tariff barriers on approximately 99% of goods, covering a full range of U.S. industrial and food and agricultural products. The U.S. and Vietnam agreed to a framework for an agreement on reciprocal, fair, and balanced trade, which will address tariff and on-tariff barriers for U.S. agricultural products and industrial goods. Under that framework, Vietnam would provide preferential market access for substantially all U.S. industrial and agricultural exports to Vietnam. And it goes on quite a ways from there. I won't go all the way to the bottom reading the whole thing, but as I said at the beginning of the video, if you want to go in and read the rest of it, which includes, where is it? Okay, so enhancing the U.S.-Malaysia relationship, as well as unlocking new opportunities with Cambodia, and strengthening our relationship with Thailand. It will be linked below, starting with whitehouse.gov. There might be a couple of whitehouse.gov links, but I'll try to make sure that it's the first one on the list if you want to take a look at that. And move into the next post, which is still related to Trump's travels in the Far East. We've got from the House Foreign Affairs Committee, President Trump is deepening trade ties with key countries throughout the Indo-Pacific. Malaysia, Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam are coming to the table because America is a partner of choice, even in China's own backyard. From Rapid Response 47. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me make sure this is it. Okay, yeah, it was it. All right, fact sheet. President Donald J. Trump secures peace and prosperity in Malaysia. I believe this is a different one. So, or no, actually, it might actually be the same one. Yeah, it looks like it's the same article. Okay, all right, no biggie. I'll just move on to the next thing. And I got this from the White House as well. Trump secures peace and prosperity in Malaysia in one day. He brokered the Kuala Lumpur Peace Accords, also secured trade deals with Malaysia and Cambodia, joint trade with Thailand and Vietnam, elevated U.S.-Malaysia relations, bringing billions of dollars to the U.S., and joined the U.S. ASEAN Summit. Very cool. And, of course, there's an image. Trump up on the big screen, attending the summit. And from Rapid Response 47, President Trump opens Asia trip by securing landmark wins for America. And we are back on the White House once again. And it says, in yet another bold display of strength and unmatched deal-making ability, President Donald J. Trump kicked off his historic Asia tour with a powerhouse visit to Malaysia, brokering historic peace accords, slashing trade barriers, and locking in game-changing critical minerals deals. That is something a lot of people are happy to hear, the critical minerals, because China, they are bottlenecking critical minerals for not just the U.S., but to the entire planet. And with regard to some of those critical minerals, China has a virtual monopoly on them because not only are they probably mining them in China, but they also have leases across Africa, across South America, and they're tightening up the supply. I don't know if it's to directly try to bolster their economy or if it's, I think it's like a geopolitical power grab, but maybe also to try to boost the value of those critical minerals, which of course would send the cost of our electronics manufacturing, maybe even automotive manufacturing, would probably send it going up and up if that were the case. But I don't think that's really going to be the case long term, because Trump, he's opening up critical mineral mines in Utah, in Nevada, in Alaska, and he's also got this going on with Malaysia. Or was it Malaysia? I think it said it was Malaysia, right? Yeah, Malaysia. So yeah, man, we're getting them critical minerals, and we don't need China to get it done. All right, President Trump's visit isn't just about showing leadership. It's about a relentless charge to put America first, delivering monumental wins for workers, farmers, and national security. He brokered the Kuala Lumpur Peace Accords, which we basically went over that, as well as the trade deals. He kicked historic trade deals with Malaysia and Cambodia, and also inked reciprocal trade frameworks with Thailand and Vietnam. The critical mineral deals, President Trump signed transformative deals with Malaysia. In addition to securing groundbreaking investments worth billions, the two countries reached a critical minerals deal that will expand trade and investment, help diversify global supply chains, and enhancing U.S. national security. He also signed a critical minerals deal with Thailand, which will promote partnerships between U.S. and Thai companies, increase global supply chain resilience, and mitigate the negative impact on anti-competitive behavior and unfair trade practices. And they got a bunch of images, too. Got a little photo gallery going on. So, yeah, I know that he was dancing. I want to say that I've got that on the list. I might actually show that tonight. I think I did. I think I grabbed that. Yeah, President Trump starts dancing along with whoever they were, these people when he first arrived. Well, I mean, like the camera's behind them. But anyway, in this moment, Trump starts dancing with them, which is hilarious and pretty comical to see. But he was having a good time, you know? I mean, he was sitting on a plane for 18 hours or some shit? It probably took him forever to fly out there. All right, the White House off to Japan just leaving Malaysia, a great and very vibrant country, signed major trade and rare earth deals, and yesterday, most importantly, signed the peace treaty between Thailand and Cambodia. No war. Millions of lives saved. Such an honor to have gotten this done. Now, off to Japan. And the president arrives in Tokyo, Japan for the second leg of his Asia trip. The next stop is the imperial residence for a meeting with the Emperor of Japan. Let's take a look at this. Trump getting off the plane. If it's just him getting off the plane, I won't put us through the entire 2 minutes. That's what it looks like we're going to get. Wonder where the First Lady's at. Maybe she's working on the AI technology for children. That's one of her big initiatives right now. Getting children to learn the inner workings of AI. Gotta beef up our young Americans for the next generation of computing. They don't look Japanese. Maybe he's the ambassador to Japan. The U.S. ambassador. Just a guess. All right, well, I mean, we basically got the idea. Have him shake a couple more hands. Move on. All right, there you have it. President Trump sitting down in Japan. And his second stop, Japan. President Donald J. Trump meets with Emperor Naruhito at the Imperial Palace in Tokyo. And hopefully I got his name right. I'm god-awful with names. I'm the worst with names. So let's see if there's anything tied to this image or not. Okay, so no, it's just an image with just a statement saying that he's meeting with the Emperor. And I think that might be the last thing I have with regard to that. Okay, yeah, so that's the latest I got. That was 11 hours ago. I suppose I could just go straight to the White House, see if they've updated anything else from 6 hours ago. Democrats still making this harder than it has to be. So that's opening up the government. Yeah, that's looks like that might be the latest we have with regard to Trump's visit to Japan. So I'm sure we'll probably get more information on that tomorrow. I believe he's still going to be there for a few more days. I want to say that his trip was 5 days. I think it's a 5-day trip that he's got going on over in Asia. And we'll move on to the next topic from Speaker Mike Johnson. We're getting into the government shutdown. There's quite a few posts to get through the government shutdown part of the show, because that's the number one thing that they're talking about. That's just the talk of the town. Shutdown, shutdown, shutdown. And a lot of things that are happening with it. The food stamps is definitely the biggest thing that people are talking about today, but also I believe it's tomorrow. That marks the first day or the first paycheck that air traffic controllers are going to be going without. That starts tomorrow. Also, 2/3 of the FBI, they're not getting paid either. And FBI Director Kash Patel, he makes a note, or he makes a statement on that as well. So, starting with Speaker Mike Johnson, the Democrat Party has joined with its radical Marxist anti-American base. There's no longer room in their party for moderates or centrists. Only extremists who praise Hamas, call to abolish borders, to fund the police, and seize the means of production, which ultimately hurts American workers. This isn't the Democratic Party of old. It's a Marxist movement with Mamdani at the helm. Yeah, because they did so well with the Affordable Care Act. They did so well with the Inflation Reduction Act. You know how Democrats are trying to seize energy production in the United States by making everything wind and solar? How well is that working out for everybody? Has anybody seen a reduction on their electric bills? Even those who live in any kind of vicinity from where there's thousands of these wind turbines or these solar panel fields, I don't think there's been a reduction in anybody's electricity, even though they've been promising that to us for about 12, 15 years now. And also with our health insurance industry, they hijacked that too with Obamacare. How's that working out for everybody? Not so well, because even Democrats today are admitting, and I'm sure I'll go through a few posts to that effect, that healthcare is going up 2 times, 3 times, 4 times as expensive for health insurance thanks to Obamacare, even though they're blaming Republicans for it. But Republicans had absolutely nothing to do with Obamacare. They got 0 votes for Obamacare, and 100% of Democrats voted for it. The same goes with the subsidies that are keeping Obamacare propped up. It's all supported by Democrats, passed by Democrats, not by Republicans. So yeah, when it comes to seizing the means of production, I mean, you can only just take those 2 points with regard to our healthcare industry and our energy production, and you could probably come to the conclusion that it would be beyond disastrous, beyond nightmarish. It would be, really the end of the United States as far as we know of it. It would become an absolute dystopic nightmare of epic proportions. All right, so let's give this a play.
There was a little bit of a seismic shift in politics. All of you noticed it over the weekend. We saw our clearest sign yet that this radical insurgent movement in the Democrat Party is succeeding. And
Dude, you could take 2 steps that way and step off camera.
As the Democrat Party in America. After a months-long pressure campaign from the far left, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries finally relented. He gave in, and he gave his endorsement to the socialist running to be mayor of New York City.
Well.
The House.
Yeah, I actually have a video clip on Hakeem Jeffries coming up, and it's a 3-minute clip. I'm kind of excited for it. I don't watch any of these videos. I just want to react to them in real time. So, I have very little time to prepare. So, yeah, so I don't have time to go through everything, but I'm looking forward to that. That's coming up here in maybe about 10 minutes
Democrats
or so.
have chosen a side. They were forced to by that far left that they're so terrified of, and they've shown the world what they really believe. There is no longer a place for centrists and moderates in their party. The candidate that they have endorsed, Mamdani, is somebody who we've talked about a lot from this podium. He's sympathized with Hamas and openly embraced anti-Semitic language.
Yeah, he refuses to denounce them.
Quote, seize the means of production because he is a Marxist. He's
Yeah.
called to abolish our borders, to abolish and end immigration enforcement, to defund the police, and to legalize prostitution, among a long list of hits that I could share with you. Zoran Mamdani is expected to take the helm of one of the most important cities in the world and the largest city in America.
Well, you know what President Trump said to that? He said that if Mamdani is actually elected mayor of New York, that would probably be the greatest gift that the Democrats have ever handed the Republican Party, because the ad campaigns would just sell themselves. I mean, they all they would just have to do is just put New York City on full display after he runs it for probably not even that long of a period of time. They'll probably start passing all of that shit probably immediately, I would assume.
America. And he now has the full blessing of the Democrat leader in the House of Representatives. It is shocking.
Well, of course he does.
And that leader and all the other Democrats are going to co-own the consequences of what they do to America's largest city.
Oh, yeah,
Every
it's going to get
reporter in
bad,
this room
dude.
should be asking every House Democrat individually.
A lot of companies
whether
are going to
they
leave New York.
too agree with Hakeem's endorsement.
Although, a lot of people said the same thing during the shutdowns. Remember that during COVID when they shut down everything, and New York City, LA, they kept everything shut down for a real prolonged period of time. And everybody kept saying that it's going to make businesses flee, which a lot of people did flee to Florida because we opened up like 2 months, 3 months after the initial shutdown. However, like, people didn't really flee the blue states, even though they did, but they didn't really at the level that people were expecting. It was, yeah. So I'm really not sure if him being mayor is really going to trigger this massive exodus out of New York City, but I guess we'll have to see.
Of the Marxist agenda. It's an extraordinary moment in the history of American politics, as this is not the kind of history that we need to be making. What we're witnessing is truly the end of the Democratic Party as we've known it. And even some Democrats are now saying that out loud.
Yep, and they're going to continue saying it out loud. It's crazy because depending on what poll you look at, 10%, 15% of Democrat voters, they identify themselves as like a progressively left, to the point where they're like socialists. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for, like a socialist faction of the Democrats. It's a pretty small minority. But yeah, I mean, look, the politicians, they've obviously jumped completely off the leftist cliff, and they've been in free fall for a while now. And yeah, it just looks like that they're just overnight just waking up like, yep, we're socialistic communists now. And we're just going to try to be as brute force as we possibly can, be as aggressive as we possibly can, and try to stonewall this and that. And you know what? If they actually did like come together behind closed doors and say, okay, we're all Marxists now, we're all socialists, we're going to push American communism full speed, and nothing's going to get in our way. If that's the case, then they might actually keep the government shut down. How long can it possibly be shut down for? Like literally, how long could it be shut down for? 2 years, 3 years? I don't know. But that wouldn't surprise me if they did that. I don't know, but we'll just have to wait and see. But this is, it's next. I got Hakeem Jeffries up next. So House Republicans watch. Hakeem Jeffries got called out on CBS for Democrats' strategy of using American suffering as leverage. Jeffries and his Democrat colleagues voted against the clean bill to fund the government, hurting food stamp recipients, federal workers, and our national security. So he might endorse him in this clip. I doubt it. I think this is just a different subject than that, but we'll just see.
I want to come back to healthcare in a moment, but the Treasury Secretary accused you of playing politics personally. And I know that your Democratic whip, Catherine Clark, said on Fox this past week that shutdowns are terrible, but as she put it, it's one of the few leverage items Democrats have.
She did say that.
Do you think Democrats are gaining from this fight?
No, our focus continues to be on driving down high cost of living for everyday Americans. Donald Trump and Republicans promised that they would...
High cost of living? Is he fucking kidding? Where is the highest cost of living in the country? Are they in red areas or blue areas? Like, by far the highest cost of living is exclusively in areas run by local Democrats, not even on the federal level. We're just talking on the county level, the city level. All run by Democrats, the high cost of living. So what the hell is he talking about?
Lower costs on day one. We know costs haven't gone down. They're going up. Inflation is moving in the wrong direction. The Trump tariffs have made life more expensive for the American people to the tune
You notice how federal Democrats like to pretend that there is no local government?
Electricity bills are through the roof. Housing costs are too high. Childcare costs are too high. Groceries too expensive.
And yet, what Democrats always do, they explain things that are problematic. Childcare costs are too high. Housing is too high. Okay, yeah, well, duh. We're all aware of that. What the hell are you going to do to solve it? I mean, they like to point out problems, but they never, ever offer solutions. And the farthest they usually go is, I got a 10-point plan to get housing costs down, and they just never explain it. It's just always just vague nonsense. As far as the childcare, a lot of it's rooted in the insurance industry because childcare or insurance to run childcare facilities is extremely high right now, which is forcing them to charge as much as they are. Most daycare centers aren't just a bunch of greedy bastards that are trying to, suck every dime they possibly can from everybody. Some of them might be a little financially predatory, but from my understanding, it primarily is driven by the insurance industry. But all right, but anyway.
And now tens of millions of Americans are at risk of having their premiums explode. In some cases, by $1,000 to $2,000 per year. That's what this fight for us is all about. Republicans
some Democrats are saying $25,000 a year.
Every week for the last 6 weeks. The Democratic position, Margaret, has been clear. Cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save health care.
Well, that was the quote from the whip herself when she said leverage. But I hear you on rising healthcare costs, but the immediate term, people aren't getting paid. 750,000 federal workers
and you don't give
on unpaid leave. 80% of the folks who work on our nuclear program are included in.
I already know where this is going. He's going to say, well, but think about the millions of Americans whose healthcare is going to go up. I mean, a 700,000 going without a paycheck, that's just a small price to pay to save healthcare for 50 million Americans.
That figure. The Agriculture Secretary said there will be delays in food stamps for many of the 41 million people who rely on SNAP. And then at airports across the country, half of the flight delays, according to the Transportation Secretary, are
because the season.
Of staffing
it's coming.
Shortages. This pain is real now. So is there a point at which it becomes too great to justify continuing the shutdown?
Not for Marxists.
Well, there is an urgent need to reopen the government, which is why we continue to
Which is kind of ironic, really, if you think about it.
Sit at the negotiating table so we can enact a spending agreement that's bipartisan in nature. That's what we've called for from the very beginning.
But the Republicans are saying they won't do that until you pass the funding bill, the clean funding bill that already passed.
Yeah, you got to pass that first.
Why can't Democrats in the Senate get on board with that?
Now notice, this is CBS. This is CBS. And not just CBS, but NBC and CNN, they've also stated specifically to Democrats on their show that it's a clean CR, meaning that Republicans did not add anything to it. It is a bare basic spending bill just to carry the government over. I think originally it was like 8 weeks until the main spending bill is up to get passed in November. And it's the same CR bill that they've passed 13 times in the past. All throughout Biden's administration, they've passed the exact same bill. And I did read somewhere that there were tiny little provisions here, tiny little provisions there, like $3 billion needed to be added to go to some military something or whatever. But apparently this CR bill doesn't include any of that. It's just some basic, let's keep the government open for 8 weeks until we can get the next year's spending bill approved. And the current CR bill is like 20 pages, 27 pages long. It's not some like complicated monstrosity. It is a clean CR bill. And even the left wing and the liberal pundits on mainstream news, they're even saying that. And they're expressing that when they talk to people like Hakeem Jeffries, that, dude, it's a clean CR bill. What the hell are you doing?
And I'm thankful for the leadership of Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats that we were not going to support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of the American people in an environment.
There's nothing in the CR bill about that at all. There's nothing about that at all. He might be talking about the one big beautiful bill, but that's already been passed. That was passed back on July 4th. So that's, in terms of the speed at which our politics are moving, that shit's ancient history at this point.
Where Republicans have already enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history.
Because of fraud, waste, and abuse.
And community-based health centers are closing all across the country. There's the possibility.
They allocated $50 billion for rural hospitals. That was in the one big beautiful bill. And they like to try to skirt past that, but that's absolutely a fact.
That Medicare could face a $536 billion cut, the largest cut to Medicare in history, if Congress doesn't act by the end of this year because of what Republican policies have done in their one big ugly bill. And now they refuse to extend
fraud,
the Affordable
waste,
Care
and
Act tax
abuse.
credits. That impacts working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans throughout the country, including in rural America.
Well, they haven't refused. Leader Thune said he'd even put that up for a vote if you open the government first. But
it's not about that. It's not about that at all. I've said it. I think I said it last week that if Republicans went to the Democrat leaders and say, okay, fine, we won't give you 1.5 trillion, but yeah, even if they fully call them on their bluff, I bet Democrats still won't open up the government, because I just think that they're committed to it. And I think even if they did call their bluff and say, okay, we'll give you $1.5 trillion for whatever the hell you want, I think they probably still wouldn't even open it. I don't think they will. I think they'll just say, no, we're going to keep it shut down anyway, which is kind of ironic, because if these are a bunch of Marxists that are running the Democratic Party now, a bunch of these like communists, socialists or whatever, it's kind of funny that their big fight against Republicans is just shutting down the government. It's like kind of opposite of what their true intentions are. But I'm sure there's a lot of nefarious business going on behind closed doors as far as the Democrats go. So this comes from FBI Director Kash Patel. Another day where 2/3 of the FBI goes without a paycheck after 45 senators, all of whom are still getting paid, voted against them last week. When law enforcement isn't paid, it weakens our ability to keep America safe. We owe it to those who protect this nation to end the shutdown. And that's kind of ridiculous that members of Congress, those who vote to shut down the government, they get to keep getting paid. However, anybody else that's working in the federal government, not everybody, but everyone who's considered non-essential, they're not going to get paid. Yeah, because that's totally fair. From Secretary Sean Duffy, air traffic controllers will stop getting paid starting tomorrow. This is not okay. I just visited several of them at Going Places CLE, that's Cleveland Hopkins International, and they are worried about paying their mortgage. Senator Schumer and Rep. Jeffries, you've got to do better. So he's just got a few images up in the air traffic control tower doing the meet and greet. And to the next one, Rep. Ken Calvert. Every California Democrat in the House and Senate voted against funding for our air traffic controllers. They continue to put politics before people. And according to Politico, flights to Los Angeles International Airport halted due to air traffic controller shortage. And they didn't push back against that. At least Rep. Calvert didn't, and say that's fake news. So I'm assuming that actually did happen today. Even though I know like Politico, sometimes they like to stretch the truth a little bit. But anyway, flights departing for Los Angeles International Airport were halted briefly due to a staffing shortage at a Southern California air traffic facility. The Federal Aviation Administration said on Sunday. Okay, so this, according to them, this is coming from the FAA. When the agency also reported staffing-related delays in Chicago, Washington, and Newark, New Jersey. The FAA issued a temporary ground stop at one of the world's busiest airports soon after U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy predicted that travelers would see more flights delayed and canceled in the coming days as the nation's air traffic controllers work without pay during the federal government shutdown. And during an appearance on Fox News program Sunday Morning Futures, Duffy said more controllers were calling in sick as money worries compounded the stress of an already challenging job. Just yesterday, we had 22 staffing triggers. That's one of the highest that we've seen in the system since the shutdown began, and that's a sign that the controllers are wearing thin. The The FAA said planes heading for Los Angeles were held at their originating airport starting at 11:42 a.m. Eastern, and the agency lifted the ground stop at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. And the hold did not appear to cause continuing problems at LAX, according to flight tracking website FlightAware. Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport and Dallas Love Field Airport saw a much bigger share of late arrivals due to what the FAA said were weather and equipment issues. Too few air traffic controllers per shift also caused takeoff and arrival disruptions Sunday at New Jersey's Newark Liberty International Airport and Teterboro Airport and at Southwest Florida International Airport in Fort Myers, according to the FAA. On Sunday evening, the FAA also slowed traffic into Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport and Chicago O'Hare International Airport because of traffic controller staffing. And yeah, it's now that they're officially not going to receive a paycheck starting tomorrow, I can only expect that to get worse. But during the first or the longest shutdown, which lasted 35 days, air traffic control played a pivotal part in that. At least so I read. Yesterday I read about that, where Trump decided to shut down the government to try to secure more funding for the border wall back in 2018, 2019. And there were a lot of people in air traffic control who were calling in sick days. They were just not coming in. They just kept calling in to work sick. And at some point, this exact situation that's happening now, it started getting a little out of hand with regard to delays and cancellations, and that helped Trump decide to reopen the government, at least during the last shutdown. So, yeah, I think things are going to get a lot worse. As I've predicted, if it keeps going on for the next month, next 2 months, could you imagine being an air traffic controller working during the Christmas season or during the Thanksgiving holiday and not getting paid for it? I mean, that's going to be just, I don't know, catastrophic is probably not the right word, but I'm sure it's going to be really problematic. It could get to the point where there's so many that are not showing up to work anymore because they have to go make money somewhere. And some are talking about side gigs like DoorDash, driving for Uber, things like that. And if there's enough of a staffing shortage, they might have to close airports entirely. And the few air traffic controllers that are still willing to work, they might have to shuffle them to other airports to try to keep other airports running. I don't know, man. It could get pretty ugly. So Rapid Response 47, SBA Kelly on the Democrat shutdown. She's the 28th administrator of the U.S. Small Business Administration. And she gives a quote, so I'll just play the video.
Now, that confidence manifested itself at the SBA through a historic demand for capital exceeding $100 billion for the first time in the agency's 72-year history under President Trump's leadership. That includes $45 billion, a record $45 billion in SBA loans to 85,000 small businesses in fiscal 2025, the most ever approved by this agency, thanks to confidence in the Trump economy. But today, 27 days later, as the Speaker said, Senate Democrats have intentionally put that momentum at risk. The SBA's loan guarantee programs have been halted, and Main Street's capital has been choked off because Senate Democrats are playing politics with lives and livelihoods. They're demanding $1.5 trillion in taxpayer money to fund health care for illegal aliens and other liberal causes. Their spin is fact-free.
Leftist causes.
They want to subsidize their broken, fraudulent, and unaffordable health care system, where premiums have increased by 80% since 2014, and those are the enormous costs that are borne on the shoulders of small businesses. Now, that confidence manifested it.
So, all right, so moving on. Rapid Response 47, watch SBA Kelly once again on the disastrous impacts of the Democrat shutdown. 6,000 small businesses prevented from receiving loans so far, revenue drying up around military communities, and manufacturers shelving expansion plans. That's what Democrats are talking about when they say they now have leverage. Yeah, basically.
The pain is the point. Every single day of this shutdown has stopped 320 local businesses every single day from accessing $170 million in SBA loans for hiring and for expansion. Now, in Chuck Schumer's own state, that is $40 million every single week. In my home state of Georgia, Senator Ossoff and Senator Warnock shutting down $35 million in Main Street capital every single week. So on day 27, all of that adds up to 6,000 small business loans that have been prevented from receiving upwards of $4 billion in Main Street lending. And it's not just the flow of capital that it's been cut off, as the speaker said. It's small businesses that rely on federal contracts. Thousands of them across the country have received stop work orders. Thousands more who rely on federal workers as their customers are seeing their revenue dry up. Here in Washington, of course, but around our military communities, around main streets across America. It's our storefronts that are cutting back hours, manufacturers that are shelving expansion plans, and generational businesses that are closing their doors for good. It's business that they will never get back. Thousands of painful stories like these are playing out, and that's what Democrats are talking about when they say they now have leverage.
Yep, they now have leverage. Very problematic, and it's just going to keep going and going. Tom Emmer, it's encouraging to see private companies like DoorDash step up to help Americans impacted by the Democrat government shutdown. But this is only a Band-Aid solution. To truly address the food emergency facing millions of Americans, Democrats need to pass the Clean CR today. So I'm going to start getting into the SNAP benefits potential crisis that may be happening in just a few days. And this is from DoorDash. The federal government shutdown threatens SNAP benefits for 40 million Americans this week. We're launching an emergency food response to help, delivering 1 million free meals through 300 plus food banks and waiving delivery and service fees for 300,000 grocery orders for SNAP recipients. It's a stopgap, not a solution, but help is needed now. Read more. So this is on about.doordash.com. We got the gist of it. Here, I'll read a couple of these bullet points. So delivering 1 million meals for free, supporting 300 Project Dash food bank partners nationwide in November. Also waiving delivery and service fees for 300,000 grocery orders. SNAP recipients at Sprouts, Dollar General, Schnucks, Ahold Delhaize, not familiar with them, Hy-Vee, Giant Eagle, and Wegmans. At Sprouts? Dude, SNAP benefit holders should not be shopping at freaking Sprouts. It's one of those fancy organic stores, isn't it? If you're on food stamps, it should be Walmart and then Aldi and then maybe back to Walmart. maybe Dollar General. I don't know. Maybe that one's fair. The federal government shutdown could halt supplemental nutrition assistance program benefits for more than 40 million Americans, including 21 million children, 16 million working families, and 5 million seniors. As federal funds run out, families face a growing risk of hunger, and food banks are already experiencing overwhelming demand they cannot meet on their own. So, yeah, it's going to get bad if this drags on long enough. I guess if there's any silver lining to it, it's that name brand foods might see a reduction in cost because, like if you're not getting food stamps and you have to fend for yourself, you're probably not going to be buying a whole bunch of fancy name brand stuff. You're just going to try to just get the very bare essentials. So this is from Steve Scalise. Senator Gallego says he's looking at everyone's personal pocketbook. What about the 42 million Americans losing SNAP and 7 million moms and babies losing access to WIC? The Schumer shutdown isn't about healthcare. It's about placating the radical left at the expense of families.
They want to tell you it's about healthcare. It's not. They really told you what it's about. It's about getting leverage, showing off to their radical Marxist socialist
and blaming the Republicans because they control Congress. Republicans control Congress.
The results of the November election. And in the meantime,
maybe that's why they keep saying our democracy. They just keep saying that over and over again. So then every person who votes Democrat, they just assume that the Senate is just a strict direct democracy. And because the Republicans, they have just a little bit of a majority in the Senate, that means that they're just running the show. That Democrats couldn't have possibly shut down the government, even though we all learned about this shit in school, middle school, high school. We learned about how the basic functions of government happen. And I mean, it's just interesting how quickly people seem to forget.
Real families are struggling. Every day the number grows higher. Yesterday, Senator Gallego went on to meet the press. He was asked when Democrats would reopen the government. And he said, quote, "I'm not looking at a timetable. I'm looking at everyone's personal pocketbooks." Now, Senator Gallego, you ought to be looking at the pocketbooks of those single moms who right now are losing their WIC payments, losing their SNAP payments. And if Senator Gallego's not sure how many people that is, we've been told by the administration how many people will stand to lose real benefits, SNAP benefits, food stamps for kids. 42 million people will lose those benefits in just a few days. Senator Gallego, look at their pocketbooks. WIC, Women, Infants, and Children program, helps feed 7 million low-income moms and infants. Senator, go look at those pocketbooks. And who knows what your real motivation is. But I'll tell you what their motivation is. Their motivation is just to put food on their table for their kids.
And I wonder how many of these 42 million, well, there's a lot that are children, but the adults who are receiving SNAP benefits, how many of them use TikTok on a regular basis or Instagram or Facebook? Makes me wonder, what is the algorithm going to be feeding them over the next coming weeks with regard to who really shut down the government? It was totally the Republicans because they control the House and the Senate and everything, even though it's absolutely the Democrats who clearly have done that because they need 5 Senate Democrats to get the government funded. It's just that simple. They're 5 short, and they need 5 Democrat senators. Or they could get Rand Paul to come back over to the other side and vote with Republicans, in which case they would need 4 Democrat senators. But either way, they need Democrat senators to get the government reopened. But I would be curious to know as to what the social media companies are going to be feeding people who are getting directly affected by the government shutdown. I have a feeling it's going to go one way and not the other. Anyway, Secretary Brooke Rollins, this is rich. Senator Schumer is still getting paid. Rep AOC is still getting paid. Yet 42 million Americans will go without food assistance starting this Saturday. This shameful Schumer shutdown has to end now. Pass the clean CR. Open the government now.
It's very rich
Fox News.
that those that are keeping the government shut down think that they have the power to make this happen under the guise of their radical left ideology and plans that no one in America thinks is a good idea. What I find also particularly rich that, by the way, the SNAP benefits are about to end on Saturday. We don't have the funding to cover them. Meanwhile, Chuck Schumer is still getting paid. AOC is still getting paid. The elected congressmen and women are still getting paid. Their security team's not getting paid. The Americans, the 42 million Americans who rely on
so
SNAP,
fucked up.
They're not going to get paid starting on Saturday.
Their security
This
details
is
not getting paid.
Incredible that we are at this point in American history and that these people are not opening the government. It's just remarkable.
I mean, yeah, like, how would you feel if you're working security for these members of Congress who are voting to keep the government shut down and you're not getting a paycheck, but they are? They're certainly getting paid. All right, Senator John Cornyn, thanks to Schumer shutdown, food banks brace for overwhelming demand as SNAP cutoff looms. This is on the New York Times. Food banks brace for overwhelming demand as SNAP cutoff looms. Uh-oh. Don't paywall me. I signed up for your freaking website, ass. Oh, wait, no, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the Wall Street Journal or something. All right, whatever. Fuck the New York Times. Anyway, I'll just move on, but we already got the gist of it. Food banks in the U.S., they're overwhelmed currently. Well, at least they're preparing to get overwhelmed. But there are food banks that have already gotten overwhelmed, especially around military bases. They've seen lines longer than they've ever seen before because obviously the military's not, well, I mean, they did get paid, I think, last pay period, but I'm not sure if they're going to get paid next pay period. I know they allocated some funds from the Pentagon's research and department wing, and they took a few $1 billion from that, and they were able to funnel it into military payroll. But I don't think that's really going to cover more than maybe 1 pay period or 2. It's certainly not going to be a long-term fix. Rapid Response 47, more than 40 million people are bracing to see their food assistance run out later this week, creating a food crisis some experts say could be the worst since the Great Depression, all because of the government shutdown. Open the government, Democrats. And again, what are people going to be fed by social media? Are they going to be fed the propaganda that because Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency, it's their fault? Or are they going to tell the truth and say that it was the Democrats who refused to fund the government, ergo, it's shut down? Anyway, let's take a look at this from ABC.
This morning, more than 40 million people, that's roughly 1 in every 8 Americans, are bracing to see their food assistance run out later this week, creating a food crisis some experts say could be the worst since the Great Depression, all because of the government shutdown. The U.S. Agriculture Department, which administers the SNAP or Food Snap program, announcing, quote, the well has run dry.
Everyone's worried that, they're not going to be able to feed their families.
Yeah, and you know what? If you want a homework assignment, you can go over to Google AI and start asking it questions about the shutdown, like who's responsible for it, how many votes do we need from which party to open it. If you ask it just questions relating to that, you'll get really frustrated really quickly because Google clearly doesn't want to tell you that it's the Democrats' fault. They're jumping through so many hoops, the Google AI, to try to prevent itself from telling you who is actually directly responsible. And if you do ask it a direct enough question that it has to inform you that Democrats are responsible for it, it won't answer it. Instead, it'll just give you a bunch of search results, like from news articles or whatever. So you have to really press it to get it to answer anything. And yeah, it was a lot of frustrating fun to do that. So, but I did hear somebody talking about what the major cities are going to do with a lot of people who are on SNAP benefits. They're just going to go into grocery stores and start looting them. I mean, I've heard that from a couple of different places, and I don't know. In some of these major cities, they've already locked up everything behind plexiglass because they've already experienced rampant looting. So it may not be as easy as they might think, at least not with some stores. Plus, you got places like Portland, Oregon, where they've already closed all the super Walmarts. There are no more Walmarts left in Portland because there was too much theft going on. All right, so House Republicans Senator Ossoff and Senator Warnock have repeatedly voted to cut off SNAP benefits for 1.4 million Georgians, including stroke survivors like Winalden. House Republicans did our job and passed a clean, nonpartisan funding bill to protect these benefits for vulnerable Americans. And that's the article. Fox 5 Atlanta, Georgia stroke survivor faces losing SNAP benefits amid the shutdown. And they're just illustrating that that this individual is just one of many, up to, 41 million Americans are set to lose their benefits. However, I haven't been on food stamps myself as an adult, so I don't know the inner workings of exactly how it works. But my understanding is that it's the state level that disperses the SNAP benefits to the individual, and the federal government provides funding for them to do so. So there may be some states who might be able to move funding around from one entity into the SNAP benefits program. So you might hear a few states that are going to be able to keep giving out food stamps to their residents, but some other states may not have that kind of funding, or they might just be plain evil, like in certain blue states, and they might just say, no, we can't do that. I mean, well, we could, but we're not going to tell anybody that we can. So we're just going to say that we just can't do that. All right, from the White House, over 40 million Americans face the risk of losing critical SNAP food benefits. This crisis could be resolved if Democrats prioritize the needs of the American people over political games. SNAP funding expiration set to hit 40 million people. Let's see if they got, I don't know if they did. No, they didn't link an article to that. Wait, what did I say? Name brand food is about to go down in price without millions splurging on the taxpayer's dime. Glass half full thought. I mean, I think that's going to happen. Like, I don't know, Coca-Cola or Doritos, things like that. Like, the prices could go down because they're about to get an incredibly huge supply of them. Because if they're not on food stamps, they're probably not going to be buying Doritos. They're going to be buying like rice and beans or whatever. All right, Rep. Vern Buchanan. Families living paycheck to paycheck are being hurt the most. SNAP and WIC benefits are running out, and America's children are the ones who will suffer. We need to reopen the government and deliver relief now. Democrats must come to the table and approve the House GOP's clean CR. I think that's the last. Yeah, that's the last SNAP benefits related post.
Okay. And the after effects right now with what we're dealing with, the furloughs, people are concerned about losing their SNAP benefits, WIC, Social Security. Where's that right now?
Yeah, people that are, at the, unfortunately, living paycheck to paycheck.
Social Security is not going to be affected. There's already money in place for Social Security. If she's talking about Social Security in any aspect, it's certain like employees who work for Social Security that are being furloughed, meaning that if you call the Social Security administration. And if you're calling about something specific, that department might not be open right now. But as far as Social Security benefits and your payout, that's covered for at least for now. But if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments.
Are the ones that really need the help and need the support, and especially with kids with the food and everything else. So we're doing everything we can to make this whole process, get it back in a position this week, ideally.
Okay, and
yeah, and if you want to help in any way, which I thought of this already, and I'm going to do that this week. I didn't have a chance to do it this weekend, but go through your pantry, go through your food stockpile, and don't be a dick and just grab all the expired shit. You actually get some stuff that you could do without, and give it to your local food bank. Just go drop it off. Like, you could, I'm sure that they probably even have like bins and containers and whatever. You could just pull up and just hand it off and just go on about your day. So, I mean, all of us can do our part to try to keep America fed, and just go through your pantry, just grab some cans of whatever that you're not going to use and drop them off, man. Especially with Thanksgiving coming up. All right, Speaker Mike Johnson, here are the simple facts about the Democrat shutdown. Democrat votes are required to reopen the government. So you could ask Google AI this question. Are Democrat votes required to reopen the government? Matter of fact, here, I'll get a head start, and I'll do that right now. So let me ask Google AI. So are Democrat... Here, let me just shorten that. Okay, now let's see what the AI says about this. All right, so AI mode. I bet it won't answer it. Is it going to answer it or not? Nope, it didn't answer it. How do you like that? Here are the top web results for exploring this topic. Okay. Please answer the question. It's not going to. I already know it's not going to. It's just going to give results, see? It doesn't want to answer that. It's a very simple question. Are Democrat votes required to reopen the government? Please answer the question. It won't do it. So I'm not going to get hung up on this. I did this last night. I made a whole video about doing this, and it's extremely frustrating because Google claims that it's like the most ultra unbiased AI tool out there on the internet. Yeah, okay. But look, if you ask Grok, look, here, hold on. Where did that go? Okay. Let me just show that example. You know, if we're gonna be fair on both sides, because some people claim that Grok is like all right-leaning and now it's all biased and everything. Here, I probably don't even have to ask it that, but I'll just plug that in. I'll let it do its thing and I'll come back to it. So Democrats have voted 13 times to keep it closed. Democrats refuse to fund the government unless we restore $200 billion in health benefits for illegal aliens, as well as billions for foreign projects, $500 million for leftist media outlets, and huge cuts to rural hospitals. So Speaker Johnson is saying that they're looking for $200 billion in health benefits. I heard some other Republican politician who said that they're looking for $1 trillion in health benefits, including for those for illegal aliens. And then you have President Trump saying that they want $1.5 trillion for health benefits, including for illegal aliens. So I guess if you want to take the most conservative number, that's the lowest one that I've seen, and it's coming from Speaker Mike Johnson, but that's still an absurd amount of money, and they're looking to fund it for the next 10 years, whereas the last tax credits for the Affordable Care Act, they were passed in 2022, again with zero Republican support. They set a timetable on it for 3 years, and it's due to expire next month in November, and that's why everybody's healthcare costs are going to skyrocket and explode, which is why they want this $200 billion, which will, again, artificially lower it, because Obamacare can't exist in its current form unless they subsidize the hell out of it. All right, so number 4, Democrats admit they're using the pain and suffering of the American people as leverage while boasting that every day gets better for them. Democrats are doing this to appease their far-left Marxist base because they're more afraid of them than the American people. Let me just check on Grok real quick. Oh, yeah, see, look, it answers straight up. Yes, Democratic votes are required to reopen the U.S. government during the current shutdown, primarily due to the Senate's 60-vote filibuster threshold for advancing funding bills. See, that was a perfectly reasonable answer. Perfectly reasonable. Unlike Google, Google won't... here's the top web results for this topic. From left-wing CBS News, from ABC again, from fucking Facebook, okay. From The Hill, left-leaning, National Low-Income Housing Coalition, whatever. Sounds lefty, but all right. ABC News, Representative Tom Barrett, is he a Republican or is he a Democrat? Requires 60 votes. Looks like a Republican. I mean, it's in red. I don't know. There's a lot of people in Congress. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to get there. But anyway, so all right, let me go back. And YouTube, Facebook, PBS. That's hilarious. PBS. So yeah, not exactly the best results to get to a very simple question. So here, let's just play this from Speaker Johnson.
So I brought you a little visual aid here to just remind everybody what the simple facts are. 4 simple facts here. The Democrats are required to open the government. They keep saying Republicans are in charge of government. We aren't. Not in the Senate. 60 votes control the Senate.
It's not a democracy in the Senate, people.
And so point number 1, Democrat votes are required to open the government. Point number 2, they refuse to do it. They have now voted 12 times to keep the government closed. And they'll have another chance today or tomorrow, maybe multiple times this week, and we'll see what they do. Now, the third point is very important because they've been
because keep in mind, if you're not super familiar with politics, Mike Johnson's the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Speaker Mike Johnson's not in the Senate. He has no control in the Senate. He's just reporting on what's happening in the Senate from his position of power by being the Speaker of the House.
Confuse the American people. They've tried to say this is a fight about health care or this or that.
They already passed it in the House.
It's very simple. They put this on paper. They made this their demand in writing in the record of the Senate, and it has not changed. These are just 4 subpoints there under fact number 3, but there's many more. But among the things they're demanding, this is what the Democrats in the Senate are demanding to reopen the government. They want to give $200 billion in health benefits to illegal aliens and non-citizens, paid for by U.S. taxpayers. That is
now, if I'm going to push back at all, is all $200 billion of that going directly to illegal immigrants, period? Like $200 billion is going to go directly to, all right, I'll use the Democrats' term, non-citizens, because that's kind of a political way to spin it, Mike Johnson, if that's not the case. If $200 billion are going to be injected into the American or Affordable Care Act to keep it sustained for another 10 years or however long they want to sustain it for, I mean, I have a hard time believing you, dude.
In their proposal,
I think it's just an element of the $200 billion
to be
illegal
returned
immigrants.
to foreign countries.
But maybe I'm wrong. I might be wrong.
They
might be
want
directly for
to trade it
illegals.
all back on. They're demanding that we do all that to get the government open for hardworking Americans again. They want to give $500 million to left-leaning news organizations, and they want to cut $50 billion from rural hospitals. We cannot.
They do. That's hilarious. They do, because during the One Big Beautiful Bill and back in July when they passed it, $50 billion are being allocated to rural hospitals because of the Medicaid cuts, which was largely done because of fraud, waste, and abuse. But the cuts will affect rural hospitals because they don't get the population of patients like the major hospitals in major cities do. So this kind of keeps them afloat during a period of time. And Democrats want to cut that. So on one hand, they're saying they're all about our health care and they want to make health care cheap. And you got to pass the Obamacare subsidies so we can keep healthcare affordable. But on the other hand, they're saying we want to strip that $50 billion away from rural hospitals. I wonder if it might have something to do with these rural hospitals primarily being in red areas.
They will not do those things, and they know that very well.
They just want people to suffer, man. That's all they want. That's all Democrats want.
The Democrats have now openly admitted,
economic
and we all had
sadists.
to cover it last week, that they're using the pain of the American people as their leverage. That was the number 2 ranked Democrat in the House, the Democrat, the minority whip, who said that, acknowledged it in an interview, that this is leverage. And Chuck Schumer himself boasted that every day of the shutdown gets better for us. That's his now infamous quote that he wishes he had not said out loud. But you know what they're doing and why.
His age is catching up
Why
to
are
him.
they demanding these things? Why is point number 3 so essential to them? Why would they do this? Because it's unprecedented, as we've noticed, and reminded you all. They voted for CRs every time it was possible in their
13
lives,
times.
as recently as March of this year.
Yeah.
But they're doing
all throughout
it to
Biden's
appease
presidency.
their
They voted for the same
far-left
thing.
Marxist base. That's the headline. That's why. That's why we're all in this mess. That's why the American people are suffering pain, because the Democrats are more afraid of the Marxist in their base.
Yeah, they want to set us down the road to communism.
See, they've made an evaluation that they have to appease the Marxist base, that they're so concerned that they'll lose their jobs.
Well, you also have to think about the Great Reset 2030 Look, that's still on the table as far as the World Economic Forum is concerned, as far as the leaders over in Europe are concerned. They want this global consolidation of power and usher in this great reset where we'll own nothing and we will be happy, or else. And as part of that initiative, they want to make everything carbon neutral. They want to create 15-minute cities so you can't travel. Well, they don't say that you can't travel within 15 minutes of your home, but that's really what they want. They want you to live in a city where everything is only 15 minutes away from where you live, so you don't have to use a bunch of electricity to get around because everything's close by. But realistically, they'll just get it to a point where it's just like a Jetson-style freaking concentration camp, essentially, where you're not even allowed to leave, and you got to work here, and you got to do this, you got to sleep in the pods, and you got to eat your bugs, and you will obey, that kind of thing. So I wonder how much of that might be an element as to what the Democrats' true agenda is, because Trump winning in 2016 really threw a wrench into that Great Reset agenda, because they were full steam ahead with that. And then when Trump won, he set him back 4 years, and then the whole COVID thing happened. My opinion, getting all conspiratorial, that was probably their answer to Trump's re-election, because they got to get everything clinched down, because 2030, it's coming up pretty soon. We only got 12 years left until the climate change just runs away and we turn into Venus in like 15 fucking years or some shit like that.
If they don't appease the far left in their party, and they sat in a back room and they made the calculation that they would rather shut the government down and impose all this pain on the American people, because they believe the Marxists, the far left in the base, are more active than hardworking Americans, people who go vote. And so they made the calculation that it's worth it to them. Every day gets better for us. We'll use the pain as leverage. For what? To prove to the far left base that they won't give in, that they'll fight Trump and fight the Republicans. What are they fighting? It's a clean CR. It's the same level of funding that they have voted for as recently as earlier this year. They are Biden-level policies and spending. This is not some Republican wish list. We don't have any of our priorities in this at all.
There's nothing in there.
It's the Democrats' own product. But they have decided to flip the script this time because they were getting too much heat from the far left.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy. Yeah, the Republicans literally added nothing to this bill at all. There's nothing. The only thing that either side wants to add to it is everything coming from the Democrats. And he already laid everything out that they want. Absolute insanity, man. I don't know. Do you think this is going to backfire on him? Because everything has to hedge on what the American people are going to wind up believing. And that's why I think that social media might play a large part in this. And I hope the intelligence community, I hope the Trump administration, I hope they're staying ahead of that, because I think that they're going to try to ramp up that propaganda machine like they did during the Biden administration, like they did during COVID, trying to get us all brainwashed into believing whatever they want us to believe in. So this also comes from Speaker Mike Johnson. The hypocrisy of Democrats on the government shutdown they created is undeniable and indefensible. Watch former President Barack Obama lay it out.
You don't like a particular policy or a particular president? Then argue for your position. Go out there and win an election. Are some of these folks really so beholden to one extreme wing of their party that they're willing to tank the entire economy?
Yeah, Democrats are.
Just because they can't get their way on this issue? Are they really willing to hurt people just to score political points? Republicans in Congress chose to shut down the federal government. Let me be more specific. One faction of one party in one house of Congress, in one branch of government, shut down major parts of the government, all because they didn't like one law.
Okay. Yep, Democrats are doing it too. So I guess we're even now. Maybe that's what the Democrats' response to this video would be. Well, now we're even. All right, Senate Republican Senator Murray knows that the president can't legally use emergency funds to pay for SNAP benefits. She should do her job and vote to reopen the government so SNAP benefits aren't disrupted. So she says President Trump, the man who passed the largest cuts to SNAP in history, is choosing to let families go hungry. He's outright refusing to use an emergency fund to pay SNAP benefits, even though USDA said they would just last month. Trump needs to keep SNAP running. And she got ratio 2-to-1, by the way. All right, see what she has to say. Because she doesn't look crazy or anything, right? She looks totally normal.
benefits for millions of Americans are at risk, all because President Trump and Republicans shut the government down, and because President Trump is
your
now
propaganda.
refusing to tap billions of dollars just sitting in a fund that specifically exists to keep SNAP benefits flowing in circumstances just like this. Last month, the Department of Agriculture said they'd use this fund. Democrats and Republicans have called on President Trump to do the right thing, but
Only
Trump
Congress
is
can do that,
refusing
lady.
to keep SNAP running.
But she knows
Once
this.
again, he is betraying hungry kids and families in our country. And let's not forget, this is the president who just signed into law the largest SNAP cuts in American history.
So, and by the way, this is her official government account. See, she's got the badge and everything. So you would think that a lot of people who are following her, 480,000 followers, you'd think the vast majority of those people would be Democrats, right? So with that being said, she received twice the number of comments than she did likes, which typically means that there are going to be overwhelmingly negative comments because that's just the way it tends to work out in social media. If there's a lot more comments than likes, then people are pissed off about what you're saying. And anyway, so what I said, if Trump tried moving money into SNAP, you and the Democratic Party would scream and stop him in a heartbeat, which they absolutely would. But yeah, didn't he say that, the president can't legally use the emergency funds? Yeah, I mean, even if he tried to, anytime Trump tries to do anything, the Democrats freak out and scream at him for it. Like when he was trying to get money to the military to keep them funded and get their payroll back up to snuff. And of course, the Democrats were freaking out against it, threatening to take him to court. They were threatening to take Republicans to court. I'm not sure what the movement is on that, if they're still looking to do that or not, but that's what Democrats were wanting to do when it was announced that the research and development money that was in the Pentagon was going to be funneled over to payroll for the military. The Democrats were threatening to sue them over that. Absolutely insane. Congressman John McGuire, even the largest federal employee union, is calling out congressional Democrats for keeping the government closed. It's time to stop playing politics and start putting people first. Largest federal workers union calls for an end to the shutdown, putting pressure on Democrats. In a statement first shared with NBC News, the American Federation of Government Employees president calls on Congress to pass a clean continuing resolution. So, yep, again, it's just what's going to happen as far as the public's understanding as to what's going on. I think the majority of the public knows what's going on. I think they're all full well aware of it. And look, like just based on her ratio alone, I think that says enough. Just laying out the fact that the vast majority of people following her are Democrats, but they still can't get more likes than comments. I mean, I think that just goes to show that the people we're aware of what's going on. You know, I mean, there might be a lot of idiots out there, but I don't think the majority of America are idiots or have a goldfish TikTok memory. All right, this comes from the Senate Democrats, though. Trump is overseas while Americans are going to see their healthcare costs spike. Trump has spent more time talking about his ballroom than fixing the healthcare crisis and ending this shutdown. Democrats are ready to work for the American people via Senator Mark Kelly. Also another ratio, not far from 2-1, but a certain strong, solid ratio. But look, Trump is over in the Far East securing peace deals. He just got his 10th peace deal as president. That's what he's doing. He's trying to bring about world peace, and he's doing one hell of a job. Anyway, let's check in.
So just in less than a week, Americans are going to see their health care costs spike dramatically.
Thanks
going
to
up
Democrats.
100, 200, 300%. They know that. The president knows that. He said he wanted to do something about this. But as far as I could tell, he's spent about 1 hour negotiating with Democrats on this issue.
They're lucky they got that much.
Off on another trip overseas. So why doesn't he get in the room with us and make Mike Johnson
it's a waste of time.
Bring the Republican Congress back? What happened to those folks? They've
you mean
gone
those
for
backdoor
6 weeks
deals
now on this
or backroom
extended
deals?
summer vacation? He needs to get them back into Washington, get them in the room. We can have a serious
Scott Bessent
discussion.
said it wouldn't.
If we could have a real negotiation.
Oh, that was really interesting. Did you see that sharp cut? Where it sounded like he was going to get a little bit of pushback, but no. He doesn't want his people to hear about all that.
And with the president has spent 1 hour on this. How much time has he spent talking about his ballroom? His ballroom that he got all these folks, and they're going to probably get something out of it.
I don't know. In total on TV, maybe like an hour and a half.
That almost every single American taxpayer will never go in that room.
So what? Most Americans won't ever go into the White House. What, should we just tear down the entire White House because most Americans won't ever go into it? The hell are you talking about, dude? Senate Republicans, this is absolutely false, and they're responding to Adam Schiff. I'll just read his bullshit first. So he says, let's be clear, Donald Trump has the power to ensure 40 million people don't go hungry during the shutdown. No, it's actually an act of Congress, dude. But he knows that. But he wishes to inflict the maximum pain on those who can least afford it. He won't fund food, but he's happy to build a golden ballroom. And Senate Republicans, this is absolutely false. Senator Schiff has voted against funding food assistance 13 times in the past month, and he knows the president can't use emergency funds for SNAP without action from Congress. Senator Schiff should stop attacking the president and do his job. Vote to reopen the government. Yeah, Senator Schiff literally has voted to shut down the government. And if he decides to vote yes on the next time that they come up for a vote, then we're only going to need 4 Democrat senators to reopen the government. So yeah, him directly is contributing to the government shutdown. It's all his fault. It's all their fault. Townhall.com, do you support our troops getting paid during the shutdown? Senator Ed Markey panics and doesn't answer the question before scurrying away. Quote, I'm not taking any salary during the shutdown. Yikes. I bet if you actually fact check that to see if he is actually taking a salary, I bet he is. I'm sure he is.
How are you, Senator Markey?
Great, sir. Thank you.
Great. Do you support our troops getting paid during the shutdown?
I'm not taking any salary during the shutdown.
Do you support our troops getting paid, sir?
Wasn't the question, asshole.
How are you, Senator Markey?
What a dick. It wasn't the question, dude. I don't give a shit about your fucking paycheck. We care about, the hundreds of thousands, well, probably well over 1 million people in the military that are not getting freaking paid. Senate Finance Committee, our tax cuts for working families gave needed financial relief to Americans of all incomes while also driving deficit reduction. We will not accept Senate Democrats' demands to undermine these policy wins before reopening the government. And that's in response to rapid response. Quote, the $1.5 trillion in spending that they're calling for, that's not on the table, says Secretary Scott Bessent on the Democrat shutdown. We inherited the worst budget deficit to GDP. We've managed to bring that down. We're not going to let them be irresponsible with the budget again.
What can we do? What can we do?
Well, we can only hope not.
For this desperate act that we can call on them to change their minds, because I can tell you the 1.5 trillion in spending that they're calling for, that's not on the table. We inherited a mess. We inherited the worst budget deficit to GDP when we
was like 120%,
and we weren't at war.
It's
it was
nightmarish.
6.4, 6.5%. We've managed to bring that down to 5.9%, and we're not going to let them be irresponsible with the budget again. What can we do?
Well, at least we can only hope not, unless they get back into power. Then they'll just keep, railroading our economy into oblivion. From the White House, RX, take 1 pill daily to cure Trump derangement syndrome. Side effects include putting America first. Hard to swallow pills. Shutting down the government for criminal illegal aliens is not saving America. And they were responding to Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota. Democrats are not willing to open up the government because they won't let an authoritarian president do whatever he wants. This shutdown has always been about radical Democrats' hatred of President Trump. Indeed.
I know Democrats are ready to go. I know they're ready to come back and do this. They're ready to come back and protect things that had passed the legislature. They are not willing to come back and let an authoritarian president do whatever he wants.
I can't get over how hilarious it is that Tim Walz's entire family voted for Trump. Yeah, it's hilarious. All right. From Rep. Claudia Tenney. Listen carefully. This may be the end of the Democrat Party as we've known it. They aren't answering to hardworking Americans. They are governed by the far left, terrified of losing power, and completely disconnected from the people they were elected to serve. And this is from Fox News Johnson. Democrats are more afraid of the Marxists in their base than they are of hardworking Americans. They have to appease the Marxist base, so they're so concerned they'll lose their jobs if they don't appease the far left in their party. And I believe we already saw that. How long is that? 42? Yeah, we already saw that clip. I'm already familiar with that. So we'll just head on to the next one. Rep. Dan Newhouse. Senate Democrats have kept the government closed for 27 days now with no end in sight. They need to end this messaging show, pass the House GOP clean CR, and get our government back to work. So technically it's been 26 days, 21 hours, 14 minutes, and 31 seconds so far. And that is as of midnight on, what is that, October the 1st, right? Yeah, or September 30th. Anyway, so let's see what they have to say here on News Nation.
Newspaper, the Tri-City Herald, you call on both Democratic senators in your state to vote to reopen the government. You also pointed to Senate Majority Leader Thune, John Thune, committing to holding a vote on extending the Affordable Care Act credit.
Man, great quality, News
Nation. So the
Nation.
question, Congressman, have you had conversations with the Democrats from your state?
A lot of them I have. We have a delegation of 12 people. I haven't talked to every single one, but a lot of them I have, yes. This is a very disappointing thing that's happening right now. And like I tried to say in that editorial, I believe this is all politics. I think the Senate has voted, 10 times at least now on whether or not to keep the government open. They've also voted on whether or not to pay federal employees. Every single time, the majority of the Democrats have voted no. And then they immediately go to the microphones and complain about the government being closed and federal employees not being
It's
paid.
the Republicans' fault.
To me, this is very disappointing. It's disingenuous. It's for politics. That will be surprising that politics enters into this, but it does. I think we need to pass the clean CR so we can get back to work with the appropriation bills and get our government back open.
Well, I think everybody who's paying attention, they will agree with you. Senator Jim Banks, even a union that backed Kamala Harris, admits it. Democrats caused this shutdown, passed the clean CR, reopened the government. This is from Jake Sherman. If I can get it open. Here we go. Big news from NBC News. American Federation of Government Employees says it's time to pass a clean CR and open the government. AFGE says both sides have made their point, but Democrats have said they're not trying to make a point. They want to enact change. Reposted due to a typo. Anyway, this is on NBCnews.com. Largest federal workers union calls for an end to the shutdown, putting pressure on Democrats. So this is the article that one of the posts above that I checked out a few minutes ago. They posted an image of this. So this is the article. The country's largest union representing federal workers is calling for lawmakers to pass a short-term spending measure to immediately end the government shutdown, urging Democrats to abandon their current position and join Republicans in supporting a stopgap solution. Quote, both political parties have made their point, and still there is no clear end in sight, says American Federation of Government Employees President Everett Kelly, who wrote in a statement first shared with NBC News. It's time to pass a clean continuing resolution and end this shutdown today. No half measures and no gamesmanship. The statement could increase pressure on Democrats to budge from their stance. I doubt it. Senate Democrats have insisted that they won't vote to reopen the government without a commitment from Republicans and President Donald Trump on extending healthcare subsidies through the Affordable Care Act, which are set to expire at the end of the year. Without them, health insurance premiums on Obamacare markets will skyrocket for many individuals and families. That is very interesting that NBC News decided to use the word Obamacare. Very interesting. All right, quote, it's time for our leaders to start focusing on how to solve problems for the American people rather than on who is getting to get the blame for a shutdown that Americans dislike, Kelly said, stressing there should be a resolution that allows continued debate on larger issues like growing costs in a dysfunctional federal funding process in Congress. Quote, because when the folks who serve this country are standing in line for food banks after missing a second paycheck because of the shutdown, they aren't looking for a partisan spin, he added. They're looking for the wages they earned. The fact that they're being cheated out of it is a national disgrace. AFGE represents 820,000 federal and D.C. government workers across almost every agency, which is significant, by the way, because over 90% of government workers in D.C. who vote, they vote Democrat. The group is suing the Trump administration on several fronts connected to the shutdown, first over the mass layoffs organized by Trump budget chief Russell Vought, and second over partisan out-of-office email messages blaming Democrats for the shutdown that were set by the Education Department without employees' permission or foreknowledge. The union believes the government should reopen now and workers should receive back pay, both those who have had to work without pay and those who have been furloughed for the last 26 days. Yeah, because there's a lot. There's thousands of employees who have essentially been kicked out of work for almost a month now, without pay, too. Quote, none of these steps favor one political side over another. They favor the American people, who expect stability from their government and responsibility from their leaders, Kelly said. The House-passed continuing resolution, which has failed 12 times in the Senate so far, would expire on November the 21st. The group says it would support either that resolution or one that would fund the government for a longer period. 3 senators who caucus with the Democrats have voted with Republicans to pass the bill, which includes John Fetterman from Pennsylvania, Catherine Cortez Mastro, Democrat from Nevada, and Angus King, an independent from Maine. 5 more would be needed to reach the 60-vote threshold required. There are no signs of negotiations between the two parties to end the stalemate, which will hit the 1-month mark this week. Trump has said he's willing to meet with Democrats only when they've voted to reopen the government. Quote, these are patriotic Americans, parents, caregivers, and veterans forced to work without pay while struggling to cover rent, groceries, gas, and medicine because of political disagreements in Washington, Kelly wrote. That is unacceptable. And it's a hard lesson, especially for those who haven't been working in the federal government for a long period of time, that you have got to have a personal budget, and you've got to scrape together enough to, just to survive on for 6 months. Make sure all your bills are paid for, because I bet a lot of people, if they even have anything left as far as their credit card balance goes, they're probably tapping into that immediately. And that is not good. Definitely not good to be paying your bills with your credit card, not with 25-30% interest rate. So moving on, Senator Jim Banks oh wait, hold on, I already read that. Next one, Senator Dick Durbin. Donald Trump is abroad while Americans at home suffer from his health care cuts. Yeah, he's abroad making fucking peace deals, you asshole. The president should return to America and work with us to end this shutdown and ensure Americans have access to affordable, quality health care. No, the president doesn't have to do that. You have to do that. This is all in the Senate, dude. Mr. Senator Dick Durbin, who personally voted no to reopen the government 12 freaking times. And of course, he got ratioed as well. Leader John Thune, because of the Schumer shutdown, the next paycheck for our troops is in jeopardy. And to quote a recent news headline, quote, 40 million Americans could go without food stamps if this shutdown continues. And yet none of it seems to matter to Senate Democrats. It's a long one. It's over 10 minutes, so I'm not going to play the whole thing. In fact, before I forget, if I forget, I'm going to repost it now. You can check out my profile. It's in the description, a direct link to it, or you can go straight to Leader John Thune over on the X platform. So I'll at least listen to it for a couple minutes.
Quote.
Ooh, that was loud.
There is a time and a place to debate health care, just like there is a time and place to debate energy policy and immigration and education, but not when the funding of the federal government and all the lives that are impacted by it hang in the balance, end quote.
And look at that, man. These senators, they care so much. Look at all these senators sitting here in the Senate right now, just desperately trying to get the government reopened. Meanwhile, they're telling Trump to come back and start negotiating with them. Meanwhile, where are they?
There is a time and a place to debate health care, but not when the funding of the federal government,
that's where the Republicans sit, though.
That are impacted by it.
I don't know. Maybe they are.
Hang in the balance. Those are not my words, Mr. President. Those are the words of the junior Democrat senator from Connecticut back in 2013. There is a time and a place to debate health care, but not when the funding of the federal government and all the lives that are impacted by it hang in the balance. These words were once emblematic of the Democrat position here in the Senate. Democrats once passionately opposed shutdowns, or so they said, in large part because of the impact they would have on American citizens and American workers. Now?
Yeah, a lot of the people that it directly affects are Democrats.
Every other American affected by the shutdown have become nothing more than
the food stamp recipients, the government workers.
And the Democrats.
Most of them vote Democrat.
On Friday, federal workers missed their entire paychecks. The next paycheck for our troops, Mr. President, is in jeopardy. And more than 40 million Americans could lose access to food stamps.
Okay, so the Pentagon R&D only did cover one pay period.
40 million. And yet none of it seems to matter to Senate Democrats. The party that once decried the impact of shutdowns on Americans in need and now apparently content to see 40 million Americans go without food.
All right. I'll stop it there. And again, I reposted if you want to check it out. I got the same thing from Senator Dick Durbin from the Democrats. I'm on the Senate floor to call for an action on Russian sanctions and the extension of the Affordable Care Act's enhanced tax credits. Okay, so 40 million Americans are about to begin starving, and you're worried about Russian sanctions? Yeah, okay. But anyway, it went 2 minutes, 21 seconds. So to be fair, I'll play at least two minutes and 21 seconds worth of his speech.
What he called an unprecedented assault upon millions of immigrant men and women and families in our midst. He said this campaign by this administration against
get your caffeine.
Relies on fear and terror at its core. For the government knows that it cannot succeed in its efforts except by bringing new dimensions of fear and terror to our nation's history and life. Its goal is simple, the Cardinal said, to rob undocumented immigrants of any real peace in their lives so that in misery they will self-deport. I ask you,
why would they even come up here in the first place? What, for economic opportunities? Shouldn't they just remain in their countries and try to make their country strong and powerful and prosperous? Why are they just fleeing their country without really turning things around in their homeland? I never understood that.
Homily be entered into the record in its entirety.
Objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. A few days ago, some Jewish rabbis in the Chicagoland area sent a letter to the editor to the Chicago Sun-Times on the same immigration crisis. And they wrote, on behalf of Jewish clergy serving communities across Chicago and Illinois, we write in opposition to the escalating campaign of fear and repression carried out by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in our cities and suburbs. In recent weeks, these rabbis wrote, ICE has disappeared people, used tear gas in residential neighborhoods, and shot at least 2 residents with live rounds, 1 fatally. At Broadview,
because they were ramming them with their vehicle, dude.
Demonstrators, including clergy members in South Shore, ICE and Border Patrol staged an overnight raid on an apartment building, dragging families from their beds, separating children from parents, and leaving them handcuffed outdoors for hours. I ask unanimous consent that this letter to the editor from the Jewish rabbis in Chicago be printed in its entirety in the record.
Objection.
Mr. President, I make a point now, since the arrival of the military from President Trump into the Chicago area, to go home each weekend and visit the neighborhoods that are under assault from the ICE agents. I did that last weekend and visited a suburb of Chicago known as Elgin, Illinois. People have heard of it, I'm sure. It's the 6th largest city in our state. The mayor, Dave Captain, is a true bipartisan man. No surprise, he's been mayor for almost 12 years. He's a good mayor and a good person, and we met in his office and talked about what's going on.
All right. So I gave him a little bit of extra time, but Democrats, they're only worried about illegal immigrants, apparently, and Republicans, they're worried about the 40 million who are losing food stamps and no pay to the military. But I will repost that, just like I did with Senator John Thune. And yeah, inviting him down there to visit, like, where people are getting disappeared and where, like, there's unrest and everything. I mean, first off, he knows he's not going to go down there and visit. And if he did, he would see that it's all rioters. It's rioters and it's violent protesters that show up and they obstruct the agents. And I mean, like, I'm not going to go into the weeds of that. I mean, actually, I've got some posts on the immigration situation here coming up here in a minute. So Congressman Mark Messmer, Sullivan County Community Hospital is a rural facility in Indiana's 8th district, providing Hoosiers great emergency and clinical care. House GOP secured $50 billion for rural hospitals in the Working Families Tax Cuts bill. And even in the government shutdown, we won't let the Democrats take it away, because that is exactly what they want to do, which is very ironic because they keep saying that Americans need health care. We need to give money to Americans for their health care. Senator Deb Fischer, to my Democratic colleagues who are voting against reopening the government, quit throwing a fit, open the government, and let's get to work.
You know, Maria, we shouldn't even be in a shutdown. The Democrats had the opportunity to vote on a clean CR that was sent to us by the House.
There were no policy writers on it. There were no poison pills. They have voted on it before, I think like 13
Good grief, how much did that
times.
fucking machine
but
cost?
This time they decided no.
Like $10 million?
No, they were not going to fund the military. No, they were not going to take care of our air traffic controllers. No, they were not going to be able to provide benefits to farmers, to people who are in needs getting their proper nutrition for themselves and their families. That was their decision. They need to stop it. They need to grow up, quit throwing a fit, open the government, and let's get to work.
Yeah, that was a weird machine that they had in TSA. I don't know, last time I flew was in 2014, so I'm sure times have changed a little bit in the airports. All right, Tom Cotton, we don't need to end the filibuster. We need 5 more Democrats to come to their senses and open the government. Senate Republicans will not be baited by nonsensical Democrat demands.
No, Harris, we're not going to end the filibuster on a short-term
yeah, that'd be so ridiculous
bill.
To do that.
Frankly, we're not going to end the filibuster over anything in this Congress. That's what the Democrats want to do. They've wanted to do it.
Oh, yeah, they've always wanted to do that.
Now they're goading and
like
baiting
railroad
Republicans to
kinds of shit
eliminate
through
the
the Senate.
filibuster, which has been a way for more than 200 years to try to forge consensus and compromise on our broad, diverse country,
Debate.
because they want it to achieve their long-held goals, and they don't want to take responsibility for it. So
excuse me, Senator, I'm just going to cut in for time here. If you get rid of this, though, does it mean that we don't ever face a shutdown again?
Well, it would mean that you never face a
necessarily.
supermajority vote in the Senate again. And if you eliminate it for a 4-week funding bill, the Democrats, they take power, will use it to make Washington, D.C. a state, to get 2 senators in perpetuity.
Oh, yeah, they will.
They'll use it to pack the Supreme Court.
Probably.
They'll use it to impose California's voting laws on the entire country in an effort to grab power so they never have to relinquish it again. We don't need to eliminate the filibuster. The Democrat needs to come to the senses and give a few more votes to open the government.
Of course, unless more than 60 Democrats get into the Senate, which I highly doubt is going to happen anytime soon. All right, House Science Committee, the Democrat shutdown has forced thousands of federal scientists, engineers, and researchers to stay home. America can't lead when its best minds are sidelined. Democrats could end this today by supporting the House's clean CR, but they're choosing shutdowns over solutions. So yeah, it even affects the scientific community. Space.com, NASA closes doors to 15,000 employees as the U.S. government shutdown begins. Nearly 90% of EPA set for furlough as the government shuts down. Democrat shutdown will next jeopardize U.S. nuclear stockpile with imminent furloughs from the White House. The number, I believe, the percentage is 80% of employees that maintain our nuclear stockpile. They've been furloughed. And then from Politico, shutdown puts research in limbo. Not good, man. All right, from the Watley War Room, moving on to crime. So this was a mugshot Monday. This is Kevin Williams. He has been arrested more than 70 times for assault, robbery, indecent exposure, breaking into cars, and more. He was repeatedly released from jail under Roy Cooper's North Carolina Courts Commission appointee, Lauren Freeman. So these are all of his mugshots, and it's too small to read. Let me see. I don't think they've got a date with each mugshot. I'm just curious to know, like, in what time frame were all of these. Okay, hold on. Okay, date of arrest. Yeah, okay, so it does. So 2023. So that was November 14th of 23, November 1st of 23, September 7th of 23, August 27th of 23. So just those 4 mugshots is like, what, a 2-month period at most. And yeah, so I guess you get the idea. So this is probably all within like, what, like a 3-year time frame or something like that. Over 70 times. It is absolutely insane. Moving on to the FBI. Members of violent extremist network 764 charged with animal crushing and sexual exploitation of a minor, cyber stalking, and interstate threats. So the animal crushing thing, I don't know, man. That's got me cringing because I'm an animal lover, obviously. A federal grand jury in the Eastern District of California has returned a 6-count indictment against Tony Christopher Long, also known as Inactive Zero and Inactive CVX, age 19 of Porterville, California, charging him with animal crushing, 2 counts, sexual exploitation of a minor, possession of material involving the sexual exploitation of a minor, and cyber stalking and transmitting an interstate threat. Long is currently in state custody on related charges. Quote, this defendant allegedly engaged in acts of extreme cruelty by exploiting a child, abusing animals, and threatening violence. His conduct reflects the depravity of 764, said Attorney General Pamela Bondi. These networks seek to terrorize and destabilize our communities by preying on the most vulnerable, and the Justice Department will stop at nothing to dismantle this network and bring offenders to justice. Quote, the FBI has no tolerance for anyone who preys on children or other vulnerable members of society, said FBI Director Kash Patel. Quote, this defendant allegedly targeted juveniles, also took part in animal crushing, and was part of a violent online network which seeks to sow chaos and destabilize our society. The FBI will work with our law enforcement partners to investigate and hold accountable anyone who engages in such reprehensible and illegal activity. And it goes on for quite a ways. Here, let me just see. So the penalties, if convicted, he faces a maximum penalty of 7 years in prison on each of the 2 counts charging animal crushing, a minimum mandatory penalty of 15 years in prison up to a maximum of 30 years in prison for sexual exploitation of a minor, maximum penalty of 10 years for possession of material involving sexual exploitation of a minor, max penalty 20 years for cyberstalking, and max statutory penalty of 2 years for making an interstate threat. Each count of the indictment also carries a fine of up to $250,000. A federal district court judge will determine any sentence after considering the U.S. sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. All right. So, yeah, a depraved piece of shit. That's exactly what that dude is. Give him the max, man. Never let that asshole out. U.S. Marshals Service Memphis Safe Task Force update as of October 27th, 1,589 total arrests in Memphis. That sounds like a much faster rate than what they were getting in Washington, D.C. 284 illegal guns seized, 83 missing children located, 119 gang members arrested. So they are still hard at work in Memphis, trying to clean out crime across the city. And from U.S. DOT Rapid Response, Duffy increases pressure on California after the latest crash. And this comes from Transport Topics. Duffy ups pressure on California after the latest truck crash, and the state faces $160 million in lost federal funds and revocation of CDL issuance authority, but is fighting back. And I think that's really what's going to hit California hard, not just the $160 million, but also stripping California's ability to issue commercial driver's licenses. I think that's a fantastic idea. All right, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is turning up the heat on California after another truck driver holding a non-domiciled commercial truck driver's license issued by the state was involved in a fatal crash. Was this the one that was from last week, or did this just happen? Renews criticism after crash. I'm just curious to see the 21-year-old truck driver under the influence of drugs. Okay, yeah, so that was the one that happened last week when he smashed into that car that looked parked, but it wasn't parked. It was slow-moving traffic in the middle of the interstate. It caused like an 8 vehicle collision, killed 3 people, and even his semi-truck burst into flames. Not completely engulfed in flames, but the engine caught on fire. All right, so where did that go? All right, here we go. But California is pushing back, insisting that it was federal regulators that approved the driver's work status in the country. Quote, California broke the law, and now 3 people are dead and 2 are hospitalized, Duffy stated in an October 24th release. These people deserve justice. There will be consequences. Pointing specifically to the state's leader, Duffy added, it would have never happened if Governor Gavin Newsom had followed our new rules. And that's that you have to speak English. You got to be proficient in English when you're driving a semi-truck or using a CDL. And you also have to be a legal immigrant or an American citizen. You can't be an illegal immigrant. A 21-year-old truck driver named Jashanpreet Singh was arrested by California Highway Patrol on October 21st on suspicion of driving under the influence after being involved in the fiery crash on Interstate 10 in Ontario. That's Ontario, California. In addition to the 3 killed and 2 hospitalized, 2 more were injured. Singh is from India and was living in Yuba City, California. So, yeah, there's an image during sunset of the collision. Just absolutely insane. So this was the truck he was in, the one who caused the accident. So, all right. But yeah, they're threatening to take away, well, hold on. It said, per the DOT release, California on June 27th issued this same driver who caused the accident. They issued him a restricted CDL and classified him as an asylum seeker. U.S. Homeland Security officials on October 23rd alleged that Singh is in the country illegally, per an Associated Press report. And Duffy already withheld $40 million in federal funding from California on the grounds that it is not following federal CDL rules and is threatening further action against the state. Let me see. I don't want to take their money, but we will hold their money back if they don't comply with these really important rules. He told the network that revoking the state's ability to issue commercial driver's licenses was a possibility. We have to use every tool in the toolbox to fight back and push back. Yeah, I agree. Asylum seeker from India. Is India war-torn? I don't think it's war-torn. I mean, I'd be curious to know exactly what he was escaping certain death in India over to have to apply to asylum halfway around the world. I mean, did he seek asylum in a neighboring country as you're supposed to? Because that's per the United States rules. Before you can seek asylum in the U.S., you have to try to seek asylum in neighboring countries before you hop over here to America. Plus, I think he actually came up through the southern border too, didn't he? So how the hell did he come up from Mexico all the way from India? It's almost as if he had help from certain, I don't know, maybe NGOs or maybe some nonprofits or something. From the GOP majority whip, God bless Donald J. Trump and Secretary Noem for what they're doing. 4,300 illegal aliens arrested in Minneapolis since just January. These are murderers, these are human traffickers, and these are people who have committed sexual assault.
First off, God bless Donald J. Trump and Kristi Noem for what they're doing. You just referenced the number, 4,300 illegal aliens since just January, Bill. And what you didn't add was these are murderers, these are human traffickers, and these are people who have committed sexual assault. And it's all because of the failed leadership of Tim Walz and Keith Ellison and all these others that literally had no problem with open borders and made Minnesota a sanctuary state. They have literally invited this in. And it's deep, Bill. You not only have the 4,300 illegals, but the FBI has recently uncovered some very serious immigration fraud. I think they're up to 250 cases and just, falsifying records, et cetera. Minnesota has become a haven for this type of illegal activity. And God bless our ICE agents and our president and Kristi Noem for going after it.
Okay. Yep, a ton of corruption going on in Minnesota. CBP Commissioner Rodney Scott. Are the cartels as bad as they are in the movies? Yes, and even worse. CBP recently worked with partners in the U.S. and in Mexico to apprehend a vile baby trafficker.
So in any movie, you're going to have a little bit of extra added for entertainment value, right? But they're all based off of some type of foundational truth. So I equate it to, let's just talk about Chicago. There's parts of Chicago that you don't want to go to. Right? They're horrible. There's other parts that are just fine. So there's a lot of tourists I know that go into Mexico, and they will tell you, rightfully so, from their experience. They went to this nice little town. They hung out. They had a good experience crossing back and forth across the border. Everything was safe. But in the words of a Mexican general, actually, that I was talking to one day having this conversation, he's like, Mexico is super, super safe until it's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's the catch. It can flip so quickly that human trafficking is real. Mm-hmm. We had a case recently where literally, like, worst case, it was, I won't say where, I think it's still open case, but
La Diabla.
Close to the border, a Mexican city close to the border, where somebody was literally killing new mothers and or expectant mothers about to deliver, taking the babies and then selling them on the black market. Like that, does that happen every day in every city? No, but that actually happened recently, and that is happening.
Yeah, I think that was Secretary, was it Kristi Noem, who said that during the National Security Task Force roundtable that they held with President Trump last week. Maybe it was Tulsi Gabbard. Maybe Tulsi Gabbard mentioned that. Actually, I think it was Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah, her name was La Diabla, and she was doing just that, harvesting organs, harvesting babies from soon expectant mothers. Absolutely insanity. From Homeland Security, must watch cowardly Chicago's mayor when asked about an illegal alien who grabbed a woman, bashed her head into a sidewalk, knocked her unconscious, and then raped her. His only response was, "Let's move on." Brandon Johnson's sanctuary city policies have made the citizens of Chicago easy targets for depraved criminal illegal aliens. President Trump and Secretary Noem are fighting for the safety of every American, even when their failed leaders aren't or won't.
Well, the real Chicagoans that I talk to, that I communicate with, mostly black and brown, actually, tell me that you don't seem to know the difference between illegal aliens and real Chicago citizens.
Ooh.
They feel that you are siding with the illegal aliens over them in their communities. Sadly,
William, let's get to the question.
Let's get to the question. The real question.
This isn't fitting the narrative, sir. You better hurry up.
Simply this. I don't know how to make it any more direct. An illegal alien from Nicaragua grabbed a woman on the north side last week, bashed her head into the sidewalk, knocked her unconscious, and raped her. If that had been your wife, Stacey.
Okay, all right, we're not going to answer it. Thank you. Thanks, William.
All right.
Would you want ICE
Wow.
would you want ICE to deport her?
All right.
To
Let's move on.
Yes or no?
Let's move on.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to answer that.
Not as mayor, but as a man. Would you want
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
It was on camera. It's on camera. Got 15,000 likes and counting. Yep. I guess it depends on which poll that you're looking at, but one of the polls that I saw with Brandon Johnson, he's only got like a 7% approval rating. Apparently his approval rating is just horrendous. So I don't know if he's got like aspirations to try to run for like, I don't know, the Senate or some shit. It would not surprise me at all. That's probably why he's trying to make as much noise as he is right now. It's typically what Democrats do. They try to get extreme so they can get on everybody's good side on the Democratic Party so they can start running for higher office. Homeland Security, Minnesota sanctuary politician like Mayor Jacob Frey and Governor Tim Walz, who refuse to work with ICE, are allowing criminals to live in our communities unchecked. Since January 20th of 2025, over 4,300 illegal aliens have been arrested in the Twin Cities. Minnesota does not belong to the world's criminals.
You represent a district on the western edge of Minneapolis.
I don't know if we
recall. There have been numerous arrests.
I know we saw this already, but
this is the readout since January.
Okay, yeah, so it's a different part of the interview.
With Homeland Security, say 4,300 have been arrested for criminal activity, of which 3,300 had a previous criminal history. What is the status for what ICE and Homeland Security is doing in your home state?
Well, first off, God bless Donald J. Trump and Kristi Noem for what they're doing. You just
okay, so we did already
number,
see this.
4,300 illegal aliens since.
Okay, yeah, we already saw that interview, so I'll just get past that. All right, Homeland Security, more lies. Under President Trump, we have seen the most secure border in American history. Newsweek is dishonestly splitting hairs over our historically low numbers by focusing on the percentage of change. Here are the facts. Because numbers of apprehensions are so low, changes in trends can result in significant percentage changes. Late summer months often see an increase in illegal border crossings, specifically 10 out of 13 prior years going back to fiscal year 2012. However, this year's summer numbers are minuscule compared to the last 4 years. Last summer, July-September, for example, there were 168,267 aliens apprehended by U.S. Border Patrol along the southwest border. That's a 772% more than the 19,299 encountered by U.S. Border Patrol this summer. In the same 3-month period during fiscal years 2021 through 2023, U.S. Border Patrol averaged 562,117 encounters each summer. That's 2,813% higher than this summer. So according to Newsweek, southern border apprehensions jump 83% during Trump immigration crackdown. So yeah, I get what they're saying. Like it went from like 10,000 to like 19,000 or something like that. Like still an extremely low number historically speaking. So they're trying to make it sound like that, oh my God, like the border's getting out of control under Trump all of a sudden. I don't know if they actually linked anything or not. I wouldn't think that they did. No, they didn't. We just got more comments down below. And another one from Homeland Security. President Trump and Secretary Noem are deporting terrorists. Trinidad gang members, sexual predators, violent assailants, and thieves are being sent back to their home country of Venezuela. It looks like we got a thread. So we got a few things to get through. Jefferson Bracho Haddad, a criminal illegal alien from Venezuela and Trinidad gang member with 6 criminal arrests, including for larceny and drug possession. So that's one. Angelo Dennis Jesus Ayanaga Jaspi, an criminal illegal alien from Venezuela, Trinidad gang member convicted of weapons offense. And another Venezuela convicted of sexual assault. And we've got a criminal illegal from Venezuela convicted of 2 counts of felony assault. And a criminal illegal alien from Venezuela convicted of assault. And another one, charges for burglary, same thing, Venezuela. And, we got a lady, Venezuela. Yeah, I'm not even going to try to pronounce her name, but, I mean, you see it on screen. Criminal illegal alien from Venezuela, Her history includes a pending charge for aggravated assault with a weapon and conviction for shoplifting. All right. At this point, you're either with Trump or you're against America. Yeah, well, that's pretty much what Democrats are making it these days. Secretary Chris Wright, today I met the pioneers driving America's AI future. They see President Trump's commitment to advancing AI and are ready to build, grow, and unleash American-built AI. And we've already heard from a number of companies, most notably Apple, investing $600 billion into the United States, and I believe a sizable percentage of that is going to AI development. So Secretary Chris Wright says, I also was able to announce a historic partnership between the Department of Energy, also HPE, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and AMD, which is the the computer chips, the CPUs, to advance American excellence. From advancing fusion power to cancer treatment, the two new supercomputers will drive discovery and deliver better lives for every American. Good news, man. Even in the face of the shutdown, they're still moving. Because well, with those two companies, they're not directly tied to the government. I mean, HP and AMD, private companies. So I'm sure these individuals are probably not really directly being affected. Probably not that much, if anything, with the government shutdown. From J.D. Vance, Vice President Vance. According to Mehdi Hassan, the real victim of hatred was not the guy murdered by a left-wing lunatic, but people like Mehdi for facing criticism of their views. And he's responding to Mehdi Hassan, a reminder of what a racist bigot Kirk was and how much hate he incited against minorities. And he replied to DC Drano, before Charlie was killed, he started to speak loudly about the importation of radical Islamic values into America. He saw what was coming with Zoran. And Charlie Kirk, he says, it's not Islamophobia to notice that a man who wants to globalize the Intifada is about to run America's largest and once greatest city. It's not Islamophobia to notice that Muslims want to import values into the West that seek to destabilize our civilization. It's cultural suicide to stay silent. Yeah. Because I'm pretty sure that your average American, certainly including progressives, even more so including progressive women, probably don't want to live under Sharia law. Probably not. Even though they like to chant that they're all in full support of Islam and Muslims and gays for Palestine and yada, yada, yada. All right, moving on. Ambassador Warren Stevens. Energy prices in the UK for industry are 4 times higher than in the United States and more than double for UK consumers. But the good news is that U.S. companies are eager to invest in the UK, especially in the energy sectors, deepening the ties between our nations and preparing the groundwork for growth. Read my op-ed in The Telegraph about how the UK can secure affordable, reliable energy from its own resources. I wonder if he touches on what I keep bringing up, small modular nuclear reactors, because when Trump visited the UK recently, that was on the table. I believe they actually signed something to that effect, with the production of small modular nuclear reactors. So no, I'm not going to do that. I mean, if I sign up, if you let me read the articles, I'll sign up for it. But, I mean, look, just for the sake of this show, I've considered subscribing to some of these news outlets, but when you add them up, it gets really expensive. It's like over $100 a month, and I don't make anywhere near that kind of money. I mean, it's not that much money in the grand scheme of things, but it is to me. I mean, it's a lot, dude. I get by week after week. I'm like one of the, 70% of everyday Americans that are just paycheck to paycheck, man. As much as I would like to read it, that'd be nice. Look, if my channel, if it eventually gets to the point where it earns a few bucks a month, I'll definitely pledge any amount that my channel earns into the future. I'm putting that straight to subscribing to these news websites, because it is really frustrating when politicians are linking news articles and I can't read them because it's all behind paywalls. It's really annoying. And I'd like nothing more than to read the freaking article, but I can't because I don't have the money for it. At least not right now. Okay, so USCIS, we've updated the citizenship test to ensure new U.S. citizens honor and embrace our country's history, civics, and values. Learn more about the new exam if it's not paywalled, which it is, and it's from .gov website, USCIS.gov. So these are the first changes to naturalization test in multi-step overhaul of American citizenship standards. So in Washington today, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services posted a Federal Register notice, which I will also link, announcing implementation of the 2025 Naturalization Civics Test. The 2025 test assesses an alien's understanding of U.S. history and government in line with the statutory requirement and is one of many steps in an ongoing effort to restore integrity to the naturalization process and meet congressional intent. Naturalization is a privilege that allows aliens to become fully vested members of American society with important rights and responsibilities that all citizens should exercise and respect. Quote, American citizenship is the most sacred citizenship in the world and should only be reserved for aliens who are fully or who will fully embrace our values and principles as a nation. By ensuring only those aliens who meet all eligibility requirements, including the ability to read, write, and speak English and understand U.S. government and civics, are able to naturalize, the American people can be assured that those joining us as fellow citizens are fully assimilated and will contribute to America's greatness. These critical changes are the first of many, said USCIS spokesperson Matthew Tregesser. And I could not agree more. They should understand the inner workings. I mean, maybe not in extreme detail, but they should know the gist of how our government and civics functions, especially once they're naturalized, they can vote. And if you vote in our elections, you should have a pretty good understanding as to how our government functions. So, all right. So I'll link that if you want to take a look at that further. And move into Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is the central bank of the United States. Yeah, of course we know that. It performs 5 key functions that serve all Americans and promote the health and stability of the U.S. economy and financial system. To learn more about who we are, visit the following. I mean, it'd sure be nice to see them get a better grapple into our housing market situation. All right, so the Federal Reserve explained. It's a U.S. central bank created by the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 to establish a monetary system that could respond effectively to stresses in the banking system. The Federal Reserve System includes the Board of Governors, a federal agency located in D.C., and 12 Federal Reserve banks around the nation. The Federal Reserve System performs 5 key functions that serve all Americans and promote the health and stability of the U.S. economy and financial system. The 3 key entities, the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, federal agency in D.C., the banks, and the 12 voting members from around the system, and so on and so forth. Accountable, transparent, nonpartisan federal agency in the nation's capital, and run by 7 members. The governors includes a chair and vice chair, guides the operations of the Federal Reserve System to promote the goals and fulfill the responsibilities given to the Federal Reserve by the Federal Reserve Act, oversees the operations of the 12 reserve banks, shares the responsibility for supervising and regulating certain financial institutions and activities. It's also an agency of the federal government that reports to and is directly accountable to Congress. So anyway, that would be a nice act of Congress to dismantle the Fed. That would sure be great. And check this out. This is from GameStop. GameStop posted this image of President Trump in, I'm assuming that's a Halo outfit with VP Vance in the background. Not sure. I've seen Halo. Well, I saw Halo 2. Never played it, but I've seen gameplay like 20 years ago. So I'm not sure exactly what character JD Vance is, but still it's pretty hilarious though, nonetheless. So the White House posted this, and it says "Power to the Players," and it's just an image of Trump, and I'm assuming that's a Halo outfit. I do know that whatever that sword is called, it's from Halo. So they posted that image, and that's it. It just says "Power to the Players" with Trump in this outfit. And GameStop took it upon themselves to repost an image of Trump, and that got 174,000 likes from GameStop. That's wild. All right, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, congratulations to President Javier Milei on La Libertad Avanza's very successful midterm election. President Milei has a renewed mandate for change. Argentina is a vital ally in Latin America. These results are a clear example that the Trump administration policy of peace through economic strength is working. We look forward to continued steps toward economic freedom that will attract private sector investment and job creators, bringing prosperity to the Argentine people. Under President Trump's leadership, the relationship between the United States and Argentina has never been stronger. Latin America is on its way to a bright economic future. And the Democrats are really pissed off about that because Argentina is leaning further right. And, of course, in recent years, Brazil leaning further left. I mean, Europe, that goes without saying how far left-leaning that Europe has gotten. The same with Canada, all these other countries. Because, again, I think it has to do with the whole Great Reset agenda. I think they want to pull everybody as far left as they possibly can before they consolidate just enough power to finally throw the hammer down and really just lock us up into this dystopic nightmare that Hollywood has given us previews to for my entire lifetime. I mean, look, watch a movie set in the future. They're all dystopic as all hell. Okay, so I think they actually did link. I think they linked something to this. Perhaps they didn't, but I thought they did. Okay, no, they didn't. But that's all right. It's all right. We got enough from that post. So yeah, Javier Milei on the big win. Tommy Pigot. The U.S. is providing humanitarian assistance to Druze, Christian, and Bedouin communities in southern Syria. The United States calls on partner countries to contribute life-saving assistance critical to rebuilding and securing lasting peace and stability in the Middle East. So yeah, there's, Christians need help in Syria. I don't know if he's exactly asking for boots on the ground or anything, but yeah, getting some assistance to him would certainly be a good thing. The same with, where was that? Was it in the Congo? There was a country, or no, it was in Nigeria. There were a few dozen Christians that were murdered in Nigeria, or is it on a daily basis? It might be like a daily basis. Apparently, there's a lot of anti-Christian bloodshed happening in Nigeria. The Bureau of East Asian and Pacific Affairs, the Philippines and Malaysia have committed to principles of safe and transparent space exploration by signing on to the Artemis Accords, bringing the number of signatories to 59. The United States is continuing our long tradition of leadership in space exploration. Maintaining a long tradition of U.S. leadership in space, the Philippines and Malaysia are the latest countries to commit to the Artemis Accords. Let me just double check, see if there's anything they added. No, they didn't add. But yeah, it's a good thing. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, maybe if you channeled all this anger into swimming faster, you wouldn't have come in fifth. And she's replying to Riley Gaines, who said, "We're being destroyed from within," and that we are. She got $75K for that. Of course, AOC got a lot more than that. She got $316K for that. Of course, if we didn't have men in women's sports, she probably wouldn't have come in fifth place. Okay. All right, rapid response. Secretary Rubio on the Israeli strike targeting a Palestinian Islamic Jihad militant. And he gives a quote. Looks like they're in Air Force One. Let's hear what he has to say.
About the strike against the Palestinian Jihad individual? Yes. Yeah, look, Israel didn't surrender its right to self-defense. Obviously, the ceasefire is based on obligations on both sides. By the way, we'd also like to see Hamas speed up the return of hostage bodies. We still have 13 hostages, 2 Americans included. But we don't view that as
we're still waiting on that, aren't we?
They have a right. There's an imminent threat to Israel, and all the mediators agree with that. We're talking about the strike.
All right. Yeah, actually, I haven't heard of anything with regard to the hostages that didn't survive, because they are supposed to be returning all of them. And yeah, it sounds like they haven't done that yet. Homeland Security, following the October 7th terror attack, Sami Hamdi cheered on the terrorist attack. Quote, "How many of you felt it in your hearts when you got the news that it happened? How many of you felt the euphoria? Allah Akbar." The U.S. has no obligation to host foreigners like Sami Hamdi who support terrorism and actively undermine the safety of Americans, and we won't. Thanks to the work of Secretary Noem and Secretary Rubio and the men and women of law enforcement, Sami Hamdi's visa was revoked and he is in ICE custody pending removal. Good news.
Netanyahu did not envisage that for the first time since 1948, the Palestinians would actually retake land back from the Israelis. Netanyahu did not envisage that for the first time since 1948, the Palestinians would be able to hold those territories for more than 72 hours.
We are pitying a people who brought a huge victory since 1948. Don't pity them. They don't want your pity. Celebrate the victory. Allah has shown the world that no normalization can erase the Palestinian cause. When everybody thought it was finished, it's roaring. How many of you feel it in your hearts when you got the news that it happened? How many of you felt the euphoria? Allahu Akbar. How many of you felt it? Why did you feel it? Because the despair vanished. You said this ummah
Not
is
hearing
alive.
cheering. All right. Yeah. Well, so he's leaving. And I'll just move on to the next thing. Travel State Department, Hurricane Melissa, Cuba. Wow, that's a long-winded one. The storm is projected to cross over eastern Cuba Tuesday evening. Prior to arrival, there's an increasing risk of damaging winds, heavy rainfall, and peak storm surge heights reaching 7 to 11 feet. Rainfall 15 to 20 inches is expected through Wednesday, resulting in life-threatening and potentially catastrophic flash flooding and landslides, deteriorating infrastructure throughout Cuba, including an already fragile power grid and a limited capacity to provide basic goods and services, may further inhibit rapid health and emergency response. So, yeah, it goes on a little bit with regard to that. Actually got a link to that as well, but I'll actually pull up the map and see how it's looking, because it doesn't say what category it is. I don't know if it's still at a category 1 or if it's even stronger than that yet. And let's see. All right, weather, tropical. Just going to use my local source. All right. Wow, that is not a Cat 1, dude. That's a powerful hurricane. What is it at now? It's at a 5? Holy shit. Damn, man. I didn't know it blew up that quick. That was a very rapidly intensifying storm. So, yeah, it's going to hit the eastern side of Cuba. It's going to barrel right through the Bahamas. So, man, that's no joke. Holy shit. Absolutely crazy. NHC track. Zoom in on this. Damn, dude. Looks like it's stalled. It does, man. It looks like it's not even moving. It's not moving. It's stalled right now. Wow, just hovering there. Could you imagine if that happened over land? Or like right off the coastline of any landmass? It'd be absolutely catastrophic, man. Damn, dude, that's wild. I mean, it's good that it stalled there, because it was inching its way further and further west. I mean, that would start threatening my state if it kept inching further west. But yeah, it's going to take a hard right turn and start heading north up over Cuba, where looks like it should be a 3. I mean, I'll pray for him that it'll be a 3 and not a freaking 5, man. That would be absolutely destructive. So anyway, yep, hurricane in Cuba. So if you by any chance happen to be going to Cuba over the next day or two, which if you are, I'm sure your phone is probably blowing up with alerts that there's a major hurricane threatening Cuba. All right, so Senate Foreign Affairs Relations Committee, is it chair? Yeah, chairman. Senate Foreign Relations Committee chairman. He says Cuba is a state sponsor of terrorism and long-standing security threat to the United States and our hemisphere. The U.S. will not reward this corrupt behavior with access to our booming economy and certainly won't take direction from the UN. That is a total coincidence. Honest truth. That's just a total coincidence that I just happened to put these back to back. So the Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs says Cuba imports food, medicine, and humanitarian goods freely, which is allowed by the embargo. In just the last year, U.S. exports to Cuba increased by 16%, with $585 million USD flowing into the island in the year 2024. All right. So moving on to Senate Republicans. Today's Navy Day. Did you hear about that? I didn't hear about that. Only from Senate Republicans. This is the only post after browsing through probably 200 different government profiles and looking through, let's say, probably 60 different government leaders or officials. This is the only one that I saw that references Navy Day. So happy Navy Day. If you're in the Navy, happy Navy Day to you. October 27th. And from the U.S. Pacific Fleet, speaking of which, South China Sea on October 26, 2025. This is not a good news story, by the way. At approximately 2:45 p.m. local time, a U.S. Navy MH-60R Seahawk helicopter assigned to the Battle Cats of Helicopter Maritime Strike Squadron, HSM 73, went down in the waters of the South China Sea while conducting routine operations. And I think we have a follow-up. Yeah, so from the aircraft carrier USS Nimitz, CVN 68, search and rescue assets assigned to Carrier Strike Group 11 safely recovered all 3 crew members. Following the incident, separately at 3:15 p.m., an FA-18F Super Hornet fighter assigned to the Fighting Redcocks of Strike Fighter Squadron BFA-22 also went down in the waters. Damn, dude. So we lost a freaking F-18 of the South China Sea while conducting routine operations from the Nimitz. Both crew members successfully ejected and were also safely recovered by search and rescue assets assigned to Carrier Strike Group 11. And all personnel involved are safe and in stable condition. The cause of both incidents is currently under investigation. Man, how many millions of dollars were lost in just those two aircraft alone? Probably too much to want to know. All right, so from Defense News, one such vessel with its fleet of unmanned companions could execute missions that would otherwise require multiple manned warships. So, yeah, that looks like a drone ship, believe it or not. At least it looks like it. Singapore launches Battlestar Galactica-like warship with drones. What? That is wild. So this is coming out of Christchurch, New Zealand. When Singapore's Defense Minister Chan Chung Sing spoke at the launch ceremony of a novel class of warship for his country's Navy this week, he likened the vessel to the fictitious spaceship Battlestar Galactica. Quote, "It isn't just a ship by itself, but one that's integrated with artificial intelligence and an evolving brain," end quote. He said of the new 8,000-ton warship, the largest ever surface combatant in Singapore's Navy. The 492-foot Victory, the first of 6 multi-role combat vessels, MRCV, was launched at ST Engineering's Benoi shipyard in Singapore on October 21st. The warship will now transfer to the shipbuilder's Gull Yard for outfitting, integration, and sea trials. With a contract awarded to ST Engineering in March of 23, the MRCV is a combination of a frigate and mothership for unmanned systems that fly through the air, sail on the ocean surface, or dive beneath the waves. Damn, dude, this sounds high-tech. Chan said the operational concept reminded him of sci-fi movies because it isn't about having a fixed number of drones or unmanned surface vessels. As the mission set evolves, we'll also evolve the type of weapon system and capabilities that we have on the ship. One MRCV with its fleet of unmanned companions could execute missions that would otherwise require multiple manned warships, he claimed. The 6 MRCVs, the first of which will be delivered in 2028, will replace 6 595-ton Victory-class missile corvettes serving in the Republic of Singapore Navy, the RSN, since the 1990s. The new slate of ships will take on precisely the same names as the corvettes they succeed. The MRCVs are designed to have a 7,000 nautical mile range. A mission bay holds up to 8 20-foot containers, meaning ships can rapidly transition from combat to disaster relief, for example. So anyway, it continues on from there. It's quite a lengthy article. Yeah, that'll be linked. Man, that's some high-tech stuff. All right, U.S. Southern Command, lethal, agile, and ready. Marines with 22nd MEU conduct close-quarters combat drills in Puerto Rico in support of the Southcom mission. The Department of War directed operations and the president's priorities to disrupt illicit drug trafficking and protect the homeland. So it does look like that they're training for potential ground-based missions when it comes to the narco-terrorism efforts that the Southcom that they're involved with right now. I mean, the Southcom, those are the guys that are blowing up those vessels in the Caribbean and in the Pacific right now. Let's see what they're doing.
What's happening inside the room? Pretty good. How's hot on you? All right.
Why did you even come off that?
Room. Get that one. All right. Simo.
All right, man, that's intense. I don't know, it kind of makes you wonder, what are they gearing up for? Or is it just training? I'm sure they do training like this all the time. I'm sure that's nothing new or anything. All right. So, but I think that's all I got, right? Yep, that's it. That is all I have. And again, everything will be linked below if you want to take a look at anything that I didn't finish reading. And one quick look at the shutdown, 26 days, 22 hours, 14 minutes, and 26 seconds, but technically 27 days. I mean, that's really where we're at with the shutdown right now. So anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It'll mean the world to me if you subscribe, and I will drop a new show every evening, Monday through Friday, covering the swamp and everyone living in it, the politicians, bureaucrats, agencies, and everything else. And I also post daily episodes on X, so feel free to comment over there too if you'd like. And thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your night, and God bless America.